Boo! It's 28 millimeter RPG here, Rick. And yeah, we see we already got some. we got some smiling faces everywhere, everybody. Yeah. Hey man, you wanna come in? I can go ahead and hand you a link if you want. Big Bad. Entirely up to you. What's up? Okay, I'll send it to you through the Discords if you want. If you feel like popping in, feel free. I'm letting in, everybody can pop in every once in a while. It's all cool. So do so at your own. Okay, I'll let you chill then. I'll let you chill. But yeah, I'm just broadcasting because I mean I've seen somebody's like playing some playing some Call of Cthulhu by the looks of it on Max's stream. Max Lau from Legion of Myth. Sorry, I'm just gonna open up my Dr. Pepper here, and it kind of brings me back to a lot of things I want to recall about my role-playing game experiences, and the reason why I'm trying to get back into becoming a role player, and a lot of yeah, and and you can learn a lot about that stream, with Heathen Dog. I don't want to say mean things about Heathen Dog or anything. Shauner's already done a video kind of, explaining what he would do. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people construing that as being mean or whatever. But back when I got into D&D, back in the 80s, I met a buddy of mine. His name's Ted, and he had a few rules for when we were role playing, and one of the rules was stay in character, and whatever you say when we start the session is going to be what your character says. Not, so you said nothing unless it was something that your character was saying or doing. And it was part of our rules. And when I came back, like I got out of playing role-playing games, and I got into, I was in a band. So most of my time was gigging, and that was I'll show you here in the background here. So those are some of my guitars. Some of them. I have nine. Well, actually, I have 10 guitars. All three of those are Gibson Les Pauls, real Gibson Les Pauls, like for real. The one on this one here is it's a special edition that came out only for Long and McQuaid, and it is actually a Les Paul classic. You can tell by the way the humbuckers are on here. They're zebra stripe humbuckers. Those are classic. Same with this black one here. That one's a classic as well. They have customized pick guards on them, and they have a customized cap on the end of them as well. So they're like a standard, but they got beefier pickups, and they got more options on the control knobs here. So you got lots of push and pull options. This one here that's not a black guitar, actually. when you see it in the light, it will it's like it's like the eye of Sauron looking at you. It's so the flame on that thing is crazy. You don't see it right now because of the lighting, but it's a it's a pretty cool guitar when you see it in a spotlight. It'll beam right back at you like something scary. Yeah, super red flame in that one. Maybe one day I'll show off my guitars and play some stuff for you guys. But I was a like a professional musician. We were still, you know, doing the bar gigs and stuff like that. But that was my weekend warrior kind of stuff. And I didn't have any time for role-playing games. I was just too busy with, you know, being at the bars or gigging with my friends, learning new songs, practicing lots, that sort of thing. Back then, you had to be good. You know, you couldn't just be some, you know, 3-chord kind of guy playing guitar back then. So I tried learning as much as I could. And we didn't have the internet back then, so everything you learned was from we had get-togethers with buddies, friends, and you know, some of these guys they played role-playing games too. So you know, it was pretty interesting. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I don't want to be that 3-chord game master either. So that's right. Hey Sean, if you want to pop in, I'll give you a link as well. We see Sean has been in here. Send that to you in case you want to pop in. But what I want to talk about is when I came back to role playing gaming in general. It was like around 2007 or something. And unfortunately, there was no second edition AD&D anymore. And you couldn't get the books like you can now. But at the time, I was like, okay, well, what is out there that's kind of like second edition AD&D? Because that was my favorite kind of thing. Because I had my most enjoyable moments in that in Ted's games. And Castles and Crusades was the answer here. So there we go. If anybody, this is not the most recent. Well, this is the recent book, but it's kind of like an alternate cover version of it. I have a few different versions of that. I have the mock-up first edition covers as well too, which is cool. But that was the closest that you could get to second edition AD&D, although it did have a little tweak. You know, you didn't have THAC0 anymore. It was straight up like third edition, where it was an ascending armor class, which is awesome. You know, because you know it's a lot easier to not have to worry about THAC0. You just you have your target number or higher. It's very easy. And when I got back together, like online playing with other people, it was like a totally different experience. So I was starting to relearn what was going on out there, which was basically GameMaster story time, and everybody was just kind of like die rollers. So you know, and there was occasional little bits of like role play moments, but the game master had an idea in mind and wanted you guys, you know, us guys to go a certain path and stuff like that. And yeah, it was okay-ish. It wasn't like the old games that I recall. I had so much fun playing, but I was like looking around going, okay, there's got to be a way to get back to that game sessions that I had with Ted. And Ted, I think he's out somewhere on the West Coast right now, around Vancouver. Was the last time I heard that he was still around. And I haven't talked to him since for some time, but he did perk up on my birthday back in September. He perked up on the on Facebook and said, "Hey, how's it going? Happy birthday!" Blah blah blah. And I messaged him back. I'm like, "Hey, dude, get a hold of me," but I haven't heard back from him. So I'm wondering if his if his Facebook account got hacked or something. So who knows? But it's been a quest of mine to go try to get back into some of this role play, and fortunately, I've met a couple of people online, and one of them is Sean Driscoll, and Sean said that he was playing role playing games, but he does it in a specific manner, in a specific way, and I was pretty intrigued about how that could occur, and unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of examples online, which was stunning because nobody was playing this, this kind of, theater of the mind kind of role playing game where, you could say what you're doing as a player, and your game master had, their rules and rulings according to the NPCs and the environment that you're in. But I didn't know anything of what was happening behind the scenes. So to me, it was kind of a mystery of, what do you do as a game master, And and that was part of the thing that confounded me. So I kept on bugging Sean, saying, "Oh, you got to tell me or show me or something here. Yeah, I got to know how this is done." So, hey, Shadow. We have Shadow in here as well. Yeah. That's the thing is I'm coming in after the fact, and I'm like looking around for this kind of stuff, and it just wasn't happening. And I did find a couple of channels that Shauner had suggested, and I checked them out. And it was still... it wasn't until I actually seen some actual game play that I was like, okay, I get what's happening here. I'm gonna try it, and I'm gonna set my mind to it. But it's such a hard thing. Like, I had been, since I had returned to role playing games from 2007 onwards, it wasn't until, I would say, what was it, Sean? Maybe about 3 years ago that I just started trying to readjust and getting into figuring it out, and it was a challenge, and thankfully there's a few players that are out there that want to experience the same sort of thing. Yeah, during COVID, right? Like Sean was saying, 2019, I guess, was when I started to like really start to, decide I'm going to pick this thing apart and figure this out. Now, let's see. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And yeah. And of course. But the thing is, yeah, we were all doing that, trying to figure out how do we get into this, full role play experience that people have been so mystified about. Yeah, and really it's super simple. But you have to go ahead and rewire your brain in order to get into it. And that's half the battle, is rewiring your brain to get yourself into it as a game master. As a player, it's not so hard. as long as you got a game master that knows what they're doing, and that's the key. So you have to have a game master that's willing to go ahead and sit back and just be the environment to just tell you exactly what the environment, what's happening around the characters. Not what the characters are doing, just what's happening around the characters. You can describe stuff like if we're in, say, for example, a tavern, you would describe the things going on in the tavern going, as the characters are, whatever they're doing, standing there, sitting there. They have to tell you exactly what they're doing. And that was another, that's a thing. Players must be proactive to be able to say, I'm standing doing this, pondering my, my situation at hand, looks over at the barkeep, another beer, barkeep, that's his turn. And then the game master will then take on the persona of the barkeep. And he goes, here you go. Hey, did you see the job board out there? There's a couple of good jobs on there that might pique your interest there, adventurer boy. That sort of thing. Then you're getting, this is how things start. It shouldn't be the game master just blurting out a whole bunch of, things, possibilities that the players can do. It's up to the players themselves to come up with what they're doing. And your reaction and your interaction is what creates this potential story. And then at the end of all this is when you come up with that, wow, that was a good session, we did this and this, it was crazy, that's what you're looking for. But the thing is, once again, the game master has to know how to pull back and let stuff happen. It hasn't been until maybe the last couple of sessions that I've been playing that I've been getting it and able to go ahead and pull myself out of that being the control freak kind of thing of a guy. I just wanted to stop doing that because and that was a thing. It was the whole mindset thing, trying to reevaluate every time and figure it out. Yeah. Recharging your batteries. Yeah. And the game rules. That was another thing and that's true, Sean. The game rules have to be something that is essentially very easy to use. For example, the Traveler system, 2 6-sided dice. Easy. You just roll the 2 6-sided dice for everything, pretty much. I mean, you maybe roll an extra one if you got an advantage or disadvantage, and then you take the lowest 2 or the highest 2. Depends. But it's a very simple, easy to use mechanic that applies to everything. Everything you do is 2d6, basically. 2d6 plus your skill. 2d6 plus your skill plus your advantage in your attribute. And players gotta know that. If you know your rules as a player, you should be able to play through that no problem. You shouldn't have to, ask your game master which dice do I roll or whatever. There's got to be something easy and simple. So that is important as well. You can't just have like D&D 5th edition with so many, of these intricate rules and these these different actions that you can take. It just gets too convoluted and the players just end up playing playing it like a board game, because it's a lot easier to play that kind of a game if you've got miniatures on the on the table, and or templates to show where the spell's going to be cast and stuff like that, or how many spaces you move and stuff like that. And I wasn't interested in getting into the board game thing anymore. You watch some of my early Traveler live plays. It's some of the most earliest live plays that I put out, and you can see me struggling with a virtual tabletop, running everybody through a maze of corridors and stuff, and turning on and off targeting on the characters, and doing stuff like that. It just took the life out of the game, because I was too busy trying to do all the little the little switches in the back and behind everything, and that sucked. It sucked the life out of the game. So I decided that I was going to get out of any of those virtual tabletops, or maybe just use the virtual tabletop in order to have the player sheets in there, and maybe a couple of images. And I mean, that worked out okay, but once again, it got to be a little hard, because some of the players' computers weren't up to snuff in operating the virtual tabletop that I like to use. Have a drink here. Yeah, that's the thing, once I dropped the virtual tabletop, I mean, almost totally altogether, things started to happen. I wasn't so worried about what's on the player character sheets. The players should know what's on their character sheets. I only have like a little sketchy of what each of the players are about. I just know just what their potentials are. I know what their bonuses are, on their sheets. I know what their hit points are at. So when it comes down to something happening and blood, death, and gore is happening, I know where the party is standing as far as the situation. So, yeah, and the digital dice, that helps. I mean, and that's cool. And take it from Big Bad RPG. That was a really good video that you put out on how to attach a digital dice onto your screen for yourself as a player, and that really helps. There's not enough of that going on in order to help other people kind of figure that kind of stuff out. And this here, yeah, imagination, not your eyeballs. And that's the thing about horror and stuff. Horror is subjective to each player. Now, not every player is going to look at a demonic looking doll and think of a picture of a demonic looking doll and think that is horrifying. Some of them will laugh. Some of them won't even, some of them are like, yeah, whatever. It's just a doll. But if you're using your imagination and you describe, the creepy plastic thing creeps out of the box with its hands clutching to the edge of the box, it pulls its head up, this glowing blue-green eyes pierce out from the darkness. Now your brain is filling in all the rest that I mean, some players will be thinking, scraggly, Chucky hair or something like that, or they might think, it's a tiny doll, but the tiny dolls really creep them out. So they're thinking of all the little things that really creep them out individually. And the game master doesn't have to add any more than basically what I just gave you, and it starts working on their brain, and their brain is filling in all the blanks on what they view horrifying. So they could be imagining, blood on the doll or whatever. I didn't say blood on the doll or anything. Their brains are making stuff up, and that's the thing is to once a game master gets to that point where he can trust his players to make that stuff up themselves. That's the thing, and it is a big thing of trust. You got to be able to know that your players are going to be playing a certain way in your game because it's a horror game, or it's going to be they're going to be playing a certain way because they are investigators in an event, or they're going to play a certain way because they are soldiers on a war mission that is about to happen, or they're going to play a certain way because they were explorers in space. So they'll be, all, thinking a certain way, and they'll keep to that character, drive and characterizations that their persona of how they're going to present their character in. And as long as the game master stays out of that and lets the players do what they need to do in order to, present their actions and say what they want to say to each other, and build their relationships with the other characters, it's all player driven from then on, and the players are going to drive that narrative along to where they want to take it. The game master stays back and just describes everything that happens as an after reflection of what they're doing. And that becomes totally cool, because no longer am I, as a game master, prepping all kinds of weird kind of things to present to the players. I have ideas. I have these little clusters of things that I have for this session. I have my ideas of how the NPCs are going to act. There's going to be it's a space game, and this crew doesn't realize it, but there's a robot on board, and they don't know this, but they're going to encounter it. Well, whether or not this robot is going to be good or evil in their eyes, I don't know. It doesn't have to be the big bad guy in this whole situation. It could be a help or a hindrance. It depends on how the players react to the whole thing. They may have questions. How did we get this robot? Where did it come from? It's questions, that, and as a game master, you have to have decent answers for all this stuff. So you have to have some form of valid ideas in order for the players to, ponder and start connecting dots to it. Sometimes the players come up with connections that you never even thought of, and they could be bringing up things that you might go ahead and bring up because they had some sort of idea in their, couple of sentences of backstory. They worked for a company that had robots in it or something like that. I don't know, maybe I totally forgot or missed it in their intro, and we just bring it up into the game as well, and we work it in. So the players, bring in a lot of this cool stuff that I didn't even think of. In our Castles and Crusades game, for the last couple of sessions, I didn't prepare anything extra besides, the idea of the Griffin Nest. I had the location of the of one of the towns here, like my notes on the Griffin's Nest. Basically, here I have a little map here showing going up a cliff. Basically, the idea. A couple of pictures, the river, a couple of notes. It's not much. It's just ideas. And here's another one I'm going to show you. This is the most extensive one. This was the intro, which was the dungeon that was the first encounter in this whole thing. It was in order to go ahead and where's Mick? Set up things, but I'm not counting on that map to be used ever again. But they could end up going back to that location. I haven't. I have a kind of a map of the area of a hamlet, and I have some notes around it saying who each of the persons are in that hamlet, what their motivations are, and how they would view whatever the players are doing as to their advantage or disadvantage. They would react positively or negatively depending on how they felt about it. So that narrative just gets driven by how the players themselves take the whole situation. So like I said, the last 2 sessions that I had going on there were totally wow. I just let things happen, and the players were good to drive the narrative. They were the ones who were saying where they wanted to go. They were the ones who were making these plans, and I let them make the plans. I let them have full reign. I gave very little background, like backing suggestions or anything like that. I just let them do what they wanted to, and whatever occurred, came up. I had a couple ideas for maybe some form of an aid to help them capture or kill the Griffin. Griffin's a pretty tough opponent for level 2, 3 characters in Castles and Crusades. With the guidance of the hunter said, well, the way that you would take advantage of a Griffin is if you kept him on the ground, keep him from flying away. And what else would be good than to have a plant that would do such a thing? Now, of course, there could have been another way to do it, which would have been, because they encountered a druidess, which would have worked just as well too, because she would have had a spell that could have manipulated plants in order to entangle this Griffin. But because of the situation at hand, they ended up talking to the hunter, and the hunter said, I know of this thing out in the bush, this creature plant that would grapple things if it got near. You'd have to approach it at night while it's dormant, and then we could use it as a trap. And that's basically how it all kind of turned out in the story. It didn't have to be used at all. And everybody tried to grapple it. It wasn't. Thing's too big to grapple. It's you needed something pretty strong to anchor it to the ground. And even then, I was describing things straining against it in order to hold it in place at the time. The plant was snapping and creaking and trying to keep it down. Using its vines, and I didn't have any preconceived notions on how this was gonna work. I just went with whatever the die rules were saying, whether or not things were successful or not successful. A lot of really good rolls were happening, and things were going well for the party. They ended up doing the thing that they wanted to do. And then, of course, they went after the Griffin's nest to get the eggs. And of course, being reactionary to what players do, and since they did kind of cheat the slavers out of their slaves, they what happened was the slavers didn't take too kindly about that once they discovered that they weren't going to get paid by Lord Servient, and they decided to enact their own little bit of revenge. So as the players were approaching the nest, yeah, just like Big Bad saying, "Boo ha ha." The the slavers decided to come back and try to enact some form of revenge. But it was a good little bit of combat, and they thwarted the slavers, and they killed the main slave trader. The slave trader's buddies took off because it would be more natural for them to be out for their own lives and say, "F this, we're out of here. These guys are too much of a match for us. They took out our leader. Bye." And that was handled quite handily. So, that's right. And yeah, it's the players. And that's the thing. The players got to know what they're capable of too. There was a couple of situations where players in the game forgot what their actual abilities are, and that's part of the player's responsibility to know what their character sheet has on it, just so that they know what their special abilities are. Or skills. So if you're in a Traveler game, you should know what all your skills are. You just write them down if they're not in your face, on hand. Just write down that you're good at this, good at this, good at that, and you'll be fine. That's all you need to have for your character in a Traveler game. In a D&D or Castles and Crusades game, it's good to write down once again, same sort of thing. Instead of skills, they're these cool kind of special abilities that you have. You got the ability to sneak around and hide in shadows, stuff like that. Or if you have an ability to Hulk out during rage, you have to know these things. If you're not doing these things, as your character in the game, you're missing out on half of the cool stuff that your character could do. And so it's your responsibility. And I realized that I had to pull myself back from being that game master like Heathen Dog was in the Call of Cthulhu game, to not suggest a whole bunch of stuff to them. You could do this, or you can do that, or you could, no, that's not my job as the game master. My brain is focused on all the NPC stuff and your current environment. And that is my job. My job isn't to corral you as a player and say, "Oh, you could do this, you could do that, or that's player agency. That's key here. Once the players and the game masters know their roles in role playing, it becomes super easy. And that's the thing. I'm discovering these things like in the last couple of episodes. I'm just like mind blown kind of thing. Yes, I understand it now, and I was pretty happy with the last couple of episodes. It was really good. But I tell you, trying to get to that point was it's a hard thing, and a lot of players, game masters out there, yeah, it might be tough. It might be tough at first, but you gotta keep at it. You gotta practice. You gotta have players that will help you keep that up, give you some ideas in the background. there's a couple of things that my players, Big Bad and Mr. Max and Spencer said, maybe we should do this. Kind of some of the ideas was to make sure that all the players conclude what their actions are before we keep on going onto the next round. And that's another thing that I'm working on. It's another thing I've got on my list of things to perfect, and things are going to get better and better as it goes. And I'm gonna, I think I've got my mind trained not to interfere with the players anymore with these last couple of sessions. So I think I've kicked that habit. Now, I know there's some of you guys are trying being game masters out there too, and working on this kind of stuff. Well, but in order for it to all work, once again, you got to have the players playing in your game that are going to play that certain way that you want them to, and that helps you discover, I don't have to worry about guiding these people to where I want them to go or anything like that. The players are going to latch onto something that I present to them that sounds cool, and whether or not they want to go ahead and continually go along that path, that's up to them. But in the meantime, you got enough things for them to do within that session to fill it up, and then you can stop the session when you feel like it's a good time to say, okay, it's now we'll stop it for tonight and go to our next session, or put it on a cliffhanger, or some sort of point where it's a dun 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 moment where something could happen, and we'll stop it there in order to kind of keep the players gripped for next session. So they go, oh, what's going to happen next? We've encountered this thing, and now we got to decide on how we're going to approach this. And then you have the players, bantering back and forth in the chat, in your Discord or whatever, coming up with these ideas together on how they're going to approach the next session. And you, as a game master, you're looking at this going, oh, okay, I know what I can key in and prep for. And that's the thing is you end up prepping for the stuff that is necessary, but not a whole lot that it becomes like a burden. And that itself alleviates any chance of like a game master burnout, because now you got all these brains working on stuff, and you only have to work on certain aspects of it, because I've already got Nessa covered as an area, a location with all the shops and everything. I already have Ebery covered with their NPCs and all their locations and stuff. I have the area between it already covered. They know what's there. They know there's a swamp. They know that there's a place where the river crosses, where there's a bridge. They know that there's a forest everywhere. They know that there's mountains up towards Ebery. They know that there's a hidden ruin near Ebery as well. They know of all these places. They can pick and choose where they want to go. I already know what's in each of those locations with just the prep that I've already had, already done. The rest of it is all, the players doing what they need to do in order to do what they want to do. And I'm not there to force them to do anything, which is the cool thing. They just decide on how they're going to handle stuff. So, yeah. And Yeah, it does feel good when it all comes together. I think our last session, I think Mr. Max, that was one of his favorite sessions because he was having such a good time, you know, making the plan, and then the plan changes, and then there wasn't a plan, but it was pretty funny. And I think Big Bad's character is Calrissian is hilarious because he has this idea that he's going to approach the priestess, and you know that's his love interest for the game, and it's and he doesn't, you know, Calrissian doesn't quite know where he stands with her, but he's hoping it's getting closer and closer, but you know. And then of course there's Bernier, and then Bernier with the Druidess, so which is another thing, which is kind of almost opposite but not of Calrissian and Relissa. So there's different stuff going on, and you know, now the players are the players are coming up with ideas in their backgrounds. I think Big Bad ended up giving me some ideas of how he wanted to approach his background a little bit more on his origins and stuff, which is cool. I love that stuff. And it's okay to bring that in later on. You know, you don't know if your character is going to like live for the first couple of sessions. You don't know if you're going to make it to level 2 or level 3 or whatever, because you know, we're not playing a Traveler game where, you know, the prospects of death is pretty much always on the table in any game, more so in Traveler, because Traveler's more one-shotty, or those games can go anywhere. You could do the you know, the continuation game with a campaign. But with the D&D style kind of stuff, with all the leveling and stuff like that, those are more campaign oriented games. So as your player is progressing and developing, yeah, he still can die. I'm not gonna pull punches. You know, you're going after some, you know, like monstrous vampiric kind of thing. Be wary. You could be, you know, you should know within the rule system that you could be losing levels. You could be, you know, you could be transformed into a monster yourself if you're unlucky enough in those kinds of situations. Or, you know, all kinds of things could happen. So, but the players are getting more attached to their characters, and they want their characters to succeed. So, and all this, you know, the more background that is occurring because of the adventure, the more they're attached to their characters. So they have more attachment. They want their characters to succeed. They want to be these heroes or whatever they're trying to be, and work it out. So there was an interesting little blurb that I seen on X today, Twitter, and the thing that was asked on X was by the Castles and Crusades, and I believe it was worded, what's one of, I think it was like, what's one of the things that you would, let me see if I can bring it up here. Utilities, Twitter. Let's see if there was any. Okay. That's the thing I hate about Twitter, is you can't really see some of your old messages or notifications here. Yeah, I can't see the post, but their post went about what is one of the first things that if a person was trying to learn role playing games, what's one of the first things that you give them advice on? And I said, learn how to role play. And I said in that post, 99% of the games you see online on YouTube are not role playing. You have to find a good example of it. And I gave a good example. I said, this is not my channel, but here is Dark of Maya. And I forwarded the episode of Dark of Maya, one of Dark of Maya's episodes of the game with the Muppets, the Dark Crystal. So the Dark Crystal role-playing game that they were playing. And that was a very good example of the characters staying in character, the players staying in character, and the game masters staying out of the characters' actions and just reacting to what the players were doing through NPCs or the environment. And that if you teach a person that part first, so the rest of the game, the rest of the role play, no matter which game you're going to play, is going to come a lot easier. And this is, I think this is the reason why a lot of the Rule Zero came into play in some of the earlier games, is because you want to huck out rules that don't pertain. Yeah, that's you. Yeah, I did. I suggested. I gave them the episode of some of your stuff. So hopefully it'll bring a little bit more traffic, because Steven Chenault and the gang usually upvote my suggestions all the time. So, and I think that's a supreme example. It's one of the first examples I had seen out there that was really good, and that kind of got me to go, now I know what I gotta do, but how do I get there? And that was, it's like I said, that's a challenge for me, because the way I game mastered for so long, trying to perform for the other players, and that's once again, that's part of the player, that's part of the burnout that you get, starting to, I gotta prep for this, I gotta prep for that, I gotta prep blah blah blah, and no, you don't, just get your brain out of that. So just prep what you need, and as long as you got your NPCs and your environments down, it should be easy. You got little notes on those? Perfect. That's it. That's all you need. Have a few examples of things that they would encounter in the forest, a couple of things that they would encounter in the swamp, a couple of things they would encounter on the river, a couple of things they would encounter at the ruin. And then when they get there, they encounter those things in a specific kind of thing that you kind of, think of in that situation, which makes sense. And then once you got to that point in the game where you're like, oh, it's the end of the session and we will continue for next week, you've got everything set up so that you can do the necessary prep in order to get that going. Hey, RPG Grandma. I just want to say, RPG Grandma, I'm doing a renovation of my Discord. So once I got the renovation of the Discord down, I kind of kicked out a lot of the people out of Discord on there, and I've got forums and everything going on, and I'll invite you back in with you and Shadow once we get that back and going again. I have some ideas in there that I'm working on, so just to let you know. I didn't mean to start tossing everybody out, but but the thing is, RPG Grandma, I looked all through to see whether or not I had you listed as a contact, and I don't. So I wasn't able to go ahead and say RPG Grandma. I'm kicking everybody out right now, but I totally forgot to go ahead and send you a message. So yeah, and Grandma is a good player. Everybody agrees on that. Yeah, she is a good player. And hopefully I'm a better game master for the next game that RPG Grandma comes in, because I'm going to be like stepping back and letting you guys do all the things again. So. And RPG Grandma, I'll probably get in contact with you through Shadow and Sun to send you an invite when I'm ready to go ahead and present the new revamped Discord. So I got to get rid of a lot of the Discord threads in there, and it's all going to be kind of a forum as well. And so that's yeah. No, yeah, no, yeah, I am fine. No, I want to get better. That's the thing. I want to be able to pull back and let the players do the things, and I just want to be the environment and the NPCs. So, and so that was a thing. Like if you hadn't if you didn't see in the early part, but and then of course we got Crispy here, good old Crispy. Yeah. Do what you must. Watch this later though, Crispy. It might help you. But that was a thing. I felt like I was in our Traveler game with you, RPG Grandma. I felt I was still trying to direct too much stuff, and that was part of my battle, is pulling back out of that and going, okay, I have to figure this out. So, but yeah, eventually I'll have all my bases, perfected in game mastery, but it's still a challenge in a lot of stuff. So it's still quite a bit of challenge. And like I said, if anybody wants to pop in here, let's do this crazy thing. Give you guys the link in case you want it. Too aggressive? Well, that's the thing. And sometimes you need people to exemplify what it is to be a active, proactive player, and that's if you don't have that to example for the other players, it might not happen. We all know Spencer's an awesome guy. He's a buddy of mine, a friend of mine at work and everything. And I'm trying to. I think a lot of times he gets so mesmerized in the moment watching the game as an observer, almost accidentally sometimes, that he forgets that he's a player. And then when things happen to his character, he forgets that he's in control of what his character does. And it's partially because he's playing also in another game, which is 5e, with his son, and his son is kind of like a director, like the coordinator of all this stuff. And so when he gets back into my game, he's like, he's got to get his brain into the whole thing. Hey, we'll go ahead and add you here. RPG Grandma.
Hey.
Hey.
I might have to shut my Yep, I gotta give me a second. we've got a sync issue.
No problem. No problem. So, so with Spencer, I think having great proactive
You're doing
players
something.
popping in and able to. I'm just going to mute RPG Grandma for a second here, but to have a proactive player like that is also all on. Okay, you got her. Okay, but
Okay.
yeah.
No, it's just out of sync. I don't know why. It's been doing this all night. We'll just
Oh,
roll with
what's
it.
okay? What's happening on your end there?
No, it might be synced now. It is. Cool.
Okay. No, I tell you, there was nothing wrong with you being a proactive player in the game. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a great example for everybody else to kind of follow. It did
Well, they
help.
were just all so quiet. I'm like, uh, how not to get invited back.
No, 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 no.
Run roughshod on the group.
Not at all, man. I was I knew it was going to be kind of like a short little thing because we were playing Traveler for so many sessions, and it was kind of like one of those we played it for so much. It was time for something new, anyways. So we did the switch around for Castles and Crusades game instead. So which helped. But I did need to go ahead and switch my Sunday because Sunday just was not working for me anymore. It was just we were getting to the point in retail where our Sundays were getting like so bogged down because it's a weird day. It's one of our shorter days, but for the shortness of the day, the amount of money we bring in on that short 7 hours is phenomenal. And I get so burnt out by the end of that day. And I could see it in Spencer and in Josh as well, because we'd be like going hard all day and then we'd be off. We'd be going like, oh, we got to get into a game tonight. And it was just like,
Yeah, the game that I am in right now for the 5e game, which
mm-hmm.
Big Bad's in and um, Marcus is in. I mean,
Yep.
Eli. Um, I'm coming usually straight from work. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
in the Discord for that, I'm always posting pictures of like a cow, slamming into a building or something, 'cause I'm playing the Minotaur. I'm home. I made it. So, some nights I feel better about it than other nights because some days I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
I am coming in very exhausted. I have like maybe 5 minutes to switch from, to go to the bathroom, get water, get a snack, get everything set up. That includes getting all the D&D stuff out that I need to have for my character so I can like keep track of, okay, what spells have I used and stuff. And uh you know, deal with the dogs, deal with anybody coming in and going out. It all has bathroom break, all that has to happen in this very compressed amount of time. And then I have
Yep.
to go. And then, like, if something's been seriously off um, at work or just going on in general where I'm super worried, I may not be able to completely shift out of that and go
Yeah.
straight into immersion. It just, I do my best. I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. Um, In fact, I'm like a Vulcan in my compartmentalizing. I can be like a cold person, when you need those emotions not to be present. Emotions are messy, and if you got an emergency, you need it.
Yeah.
But uh, uh, so sometimes, yeah, I'm burning out. So I get that.
Yeah.
I'm just super busy all week. People don't get it. I get up at 4:30 in the morning, go to work, get off in the evening. Then usually there's stuff that I have to go do after work because of Taekwondo and I have teenagers, So
All your
I'm just
hobbies.
I'm,
Yep.
I'm just busy, man. I'm busy.
Yeah.
I'm busy, busy, busy.
What
So,
do you think of you know, Abe is a great game master. He does very well. You know, I'm not giving him any clout or any you know me and him had kind of like a falling out, but I mean I just I still want Abe to be friends, but I'm friends with Shauner, of course. That's not going to change. What do you think is, do you find 5e to be really good for a role playing game, or do you feel that there are some better alternatives out there since you've played
okay.
it?
Now I'm a little disadvantaged here, guys. I played older role-playing games,
Mm
and when I came back to the role-playing community, 5e was the game that did it. It was on sale. I literally walked into a used bookstore and it had a brand new box of like Overstock or something, and they were selling it for like really cheap, like $10. I'm like, well, oh, what the heck? We got to read because all a good chunk of my role playing game stuff, my role playing game stuff got destroyed, and our lives had been so crazy anyway. We just weren't doing anything, so there's like a big gap. Maybe like one off game. Usually it was D&D and of an edition. Somebody else hosted it
hmm. Mm hmm.
and was in there. So that might have been a three, just one. So, and then like nothing. So from like 2E and before that time period, from some from the 70s through when 2E was being published, we were playing role playing games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a break, a huge break. And then you come back and we came back to 5E. So that means there's a lot of games I haven't played. Like if you ask me about Gamma World, Metamorphosis, Star Frontiers, I do have Frontier Space. I did pick that up and I've played with it a little bit. It's a good game. Um, but from my perspective, you can clunk up any game and make it completely unworkable to roleplay. Or you can take a game that people swear up, swear on a stack of holy Bibles. You cannot roleplay that game, and it can be done.
Mm hmm.
It's a matter of technique and emphasis usually is what makes a difference on the range. There's like a range between the role playing, the improv of role play, where you get that immersion of the drama and the tension between players and the referee for that action. Um, and usually it's usually what I would call the more human factor, of the NPCs interacting with the player characters or player character to player character.
Right.
That's where your role playing really is. When you get down to it,
Yeah.
that's where
Yeah.
your drama is. Um, uh, versus the simulation end of the scale, where you're trying to figure out how to make the physics work in the abstract rule mechanics. And so you've got this range, and that's why you have such a diversity in what we see on the tabletop role playing games between where it looks like a war game 100% to it seems like people are just telling a story and what are the
Yeah.
rules, you know?
Yeah.
And so you can, and there's since D&D, which was the first one came out, there's always been this you can read the old dragons of what people sent in. They're trying to figure out how to make it work the
Yeah.
best,
Yeah.
and that hasn't changed. And I think the industry goes through like a cycle of stripping everything out.
Mm
Let's go pair. We're minimalists. It's
hmm.
the white room with the white table and the one vase, right?
Right.
For your rules. And then to like my picture behind me, like just the whole house is a collage of stuff, and it's too much, and so uh, it's it's kind of like that. So I think you can probably role play them all pretty good if you put your head to it and figure out which rules you're using and which rules are. That's kind of
Y-
like
y-
do we need that rule?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Yeah,
drop it into that
it's
rule.
a lot of that rule that like I said earlier in this video, the rule zero, which was emphasized back in AD&D, is you don't have to use all the rules. You just kind of it's up to you and your table what you pick and choose out of it. And I think that's what's got to be done with like a 5e kind of thing. I do have 5e here. I've never played it because it's just, to me, it's just way too much. It's just too convoluted for me to play it as directly from the book. It would have to
No, I
be
changed it.
stripped down on a lot of
I
stuff.
changed
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Terrible to
yeah,
it.
yeah,
And that's because I grew up playing D&D before it became advanced
yeah.
D&D, and then after it became 1E, and then into 2E, and then reading the Dragon magazines and everybody's ideas. Um, and so in my brain, so it's still weird to me when everybody's arguing about old D&E, like 2E really isn't, and 1E is the Paragon. No, it's basic, and and I'm like, it's all D&D. What are you guys fighting about? It's all compatible. No, it's
Yeah.
not. Yes, the hell it
Technically,
is.
it all works. Yeah, yeah,
You just pick which of these rules you're going to use, and how simplified you're going to make it, or how complex you're going to make it,
yeah.
and you go from there.
Yeah, yeah, there
And
could be
so,
a lot of 5e games where you just have the one action, one action, one movement for your turn instead of
there you
having
go.
the short actions and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't do that.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
I didn't
there's
do
a
that, man. I sped
yeah,
up my 5e games.
yeah.
you know, and uh, and I put stuff back in. Like if I felt something from 1E would make the 5E game better, then that's what we're rolling with.
Sure.
Um, and I, 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 I pulled Oriental Adventures. Everybody
Hmm.
wanted to do Oriental Adventures, first 5e game. So I rewrote or represented, if you will, reskinned that original um, in the booklet you get in the little box, Vandelver's Mine or whatever it's called, um, as an Asian setting with Asian player character races
Right.
and Asian monsters. None of that existed in 5e. I did some heavy lifting to,
Yeah,
to,
yeah, I could
to make
imagine.
that happen. There's no elves.
Yeah.
There's no elves. There's bamboo people and water people. And there's there's dwarves, but they're Asian dwarves. They're
And don't forget the yokai. The
yeah,
yokai.
yeah, and the goblins look totally different. So we did that. We had foreigners, and they basically worshipped Greek gods, the foreign visitors. And then I had a whole mythology for the Asian culture that I worked out that even explained where the where the different races came from. It was I did that just for like one whole little mini campaign, not even the whole world building thing,
Hmm.
because people wanted to do the Asian thing. So,
Right.
with the crazy kung fu and stuff. So I made it happen.
Hmm.
Using a 2E book and 5E rules. Um, so you can do it if you don't tell yourself you can't, and you don't make it too complicated. You
Yeah.
you go with
Yeah.
it's a study. So It's about how I describe things first. So, if you go in and all the buildings are Tudor buildings, that's very different than saying, you know, the buildings are brick mud with thatched roof, or or they're made out of bamboo, or they're a log cabins. Once you start describing a place, it's how you describe it that starts making people see it differently in their head. And then
Yeah.
once they get enough info, they start running with it, especially people who like to watch kung fu movies. Yeah, yeah, everyone's got the little hats or they're dressed a certain way. Of course they are, because they're doing a kung fu movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think
So
part of the fun of it also is to hold back that exposition and let the players um, discover this, discover the difference in hats. They're as it slowly comes to them, instead of giving them a big, you know, 10 paragraphs of this is what this place is like. No, just spoon feed it to them
right.
gradually.
The
It
group wanted to do Asia.
Yeah.
So so we all were on the same picture, what that meant. So they already had their images in their heads. We did have a dragonborn, but all the dragons in the setting, I just told everybody straight up, they all look like Asian dragons.
Hmm.
So if they had a D&D background, which about half the players did, who were used to black dragons looking a certain way, I said, but they look like Asian dragons. Everyone was like, okay, right? Because they know that means they don't got wings. And so the dragonborn had a completely different backstory for that setting, which I gave the
Right.
Dragonborn
Right.
wisdom at the time, which I have somewhere around here. I don't know where to put it, but it was really cool.
Cool.
And you know, and they were like, "This is so cool. This is better than what I've read on the net from Dragonborn." And I was like, you know, um, so when you give people that kind of stuff, just enough that they then know where they're going with their little races. And how those races are going to manifest. Like there's no elves, instead there's these nature spirit people. It also makes your work easier because even if you're doing all this work to convert something into a new rule set or a completely different game, even more drastic, um, you want to limit the amount of work you have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, there's a reason why if you look at the old TSR games, there's like there tends to be 4 or 5 races or player races to get you going, to get
Right.
the DM going. Not I have 4E, even though I haven't played it, 'cause I got given by a game store like all the books for it. They were like, "Hey, you want these? You come in and buy stuff all the time. We're getting rid of stock. Nobody wants to buy them." I'm like, "I'll take them home. Sure. Give me the precious D&D stuff.
and,
It'll be useful
and
somehow. I don't know how, but it
yeah.
will."
Yeah.
You know. So when I flip through those, which I have to actually, I really do need to actually sit down and read them, but I've just been busy. But when I flipped through them, one of the things that I was like, oh my God, look at all these player manuals. Why are there so many player manuals, right? And it's all these
So
different
many
races and
options. Yep.
classes, and I'm like, it's too much for a new DM. Period. Especially if they're dealing with new rules. Uh, it's okay for them to gradually add stuff in, absolutely. And the DM have a chance to say, yay, nay, this is going to work with the setting or not. So when you're doing a new setting, it is okay to like set some hard parameters at the beginning, even if it's as simple as, look, y'all got started out as your first player character's human, because we got to find out what the norm is for the game before we start,
Yeah. Before you
adding
start
that
bringing
stuff.
in everything from all the other books. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you did when you started off in role playing games, were you just a player, or did you have the aspirations of being a game master and all that right off the bat?
Well, I was a kid. And what happened was, this is a long time ago, guys. This would have been in the late 70s, I'm guessing. At any rate, my cousin, my oldest male cousin, who was younger than me, um, I think it was at my grandma's house, so it could have been at his house. We were all the cousins were all together, and he said, "I got this new game, D&D." My dad gave it to him. Now his dad would buy games, play them for a while, and then kick them down to his son.
Hmm.
So that's probably how he got the D&D game.
Cool.
Again,
Cool.
just knowing how things work. Um, and my cousin was really big into war everything,
Yep.
war modeling, army building. We used to clash armies for fun. We had no rules. We just made up rules. We weren't
Right.
working out of a But I had my own armies because that's what we would play. We would play war games. And we were always building like airplanes and tanks and stuff. And if we were dressing up as soldiers and fighting on different sides or cowboys and Indians. I mean, we were always doing that stuff. So so make believe was already well established. Moving little, you know, pretend armies around in our heads was already well established. So he had D&D and he wanted to DM it and he wanted to try to play it. So it was me and his sister, who still younger than me, but older than him. And I'm pretty sure I was an elf, not an elf, a half elf. I was a girl, so was the other girl. We were both
Hmm.
like elves or half elves, or something like that. And we went on this adventure, which went kind of badly for us because, the only module he had to work with as a guide was Temple of Frog
Oh, okay. Oh my
in the little
goodness.
pamphlet.
That's a little advanced. Oh boy.
That's
Yikes.
old school D&D, man. So before the box, before AD&D, making sense out of them rules
Yeah.
as best as best we could. And so we did several sessions, and then eventually, more material came out. And somebody ended up with the monster manual, and somebody ended up with. I mean, I know I got the box set at one point for because I kept asking my parents for D&D stuff. Yeah, for my birthday and Christmas, it's what I want, it's what I want, Mom, it's what I want. Yeah. Well, where did you get that? I had to tell them where to go in town to buy it. There's like one place. Um,
Did you get the box? Did you get the Holmes box set, or was it the
it
basic
was
expert?
not the whole. I don't know. I don't think it was the Holmes.
Okay. Okay.
Um, as a kid, I was rough on stuff. Um, uh, it wasn't. So for a long time, I was a player. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
okay. But there came a time where we started taking turns. We would hook up. It was just our cousins at first, and we would take turns DMing. So that did happen, and then
Cool.
eventually I ended up with the box set. I ended up with the monster manual, and players and DM guide and all that stuff as that stuff came out, along with buying Dragon magazine and all that stuff, of course. Um, so and it was just we started taking turns because he wanted to be a player too. He wanted to go
Hmm.
get a cool sword and kill
For
a
sure.
monster, and, get some gold, and loot some bodies. That's what you
Yep.
did,
That's right.
So um, so that's how I started playing, and then it was um, by high school. I had lots of games. So, and then he was constantly getting games as well, other role-playing games or tactical games.
Hmm.
So we were always playing. Like I'm pretty sure he had the Western one because I remember playing it, and I know he had the biplane game. We played that.
All the old
Um,
bookcase Avalon Hill kind of stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, or TSR ones. Yeah, yeah. I had Traveler when it came out. Um, could not convince anybody to play it with me though. Absolutely could not. I
It was
tried. None of
hard.
the
It's
kids would
hard.
do it. None of the kids would do it. And by then, you're playing with people from school and stuff as well. So I gave up on Traveler, became a resource box of goodies that you could add into a different space game maybe, but not. I just couldn't get anybody to do it. They absolutely refused. They would take one look at the rules and their brains would explode. Um, so Gamma World, we did Gamma World, we did Star Frontiers. There was a couple spy games in there, 007 one, and there was Top
Top
Secret.
Secret. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so just off the top of my head, I mean, and Lord knows what else.
What
I mean,
what was the thing that made, because we all started off as two-dimensional players. Now this is the thing, just in case everybody out there is wondering. Like a one-dimensional player is the die roller player. Doesn't say anything in the game, just rolls the die when they're told to by the game master. The 2D player is the one that actually starts to inquire about things and becomes more inquisitive, more vocal during the game, and rolls the dice. The 3D player is the one that finally gets what's happening here and does their action, says what they're going to say, and then leaves it to there for the game master to go ahead and start comprehending everything and creating the environment for them in order to play on through. When was it that you finally went from 2D to a 3D player like we're doing nowadays, where we're actually role playing?
hmm.
Was it
Well,
was there like
you
a
know,
specific game that you started playing that started prompting you, or was it
no,
just the
not a
group?
specific game. Um, I would say at any given time that I've been role playing, um, I've been sometimes probably all three of those things in a single game.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Um, because as adults, we have trouble pretending, I think, and playing make believe.
Hmm.
A kid does not. So when a group of kids are sitting around with a bunch of little books trying to figure out how to play a game, and there's no adult input on how to do it, other than we know it's a game and it has rules, okay, which we're going to do our best to follow.
Right.
But we also know we have to imagine and pretend, and we have to communicate back and forth. You just start doing that.
Yeah.
And it was, if you go look at those older books, they don't have a big section of this is what the DM says, this is what player A and player B say. So um, they don't have that example in
Right.
there.
Because
Okay.
when I seen like Holmes, there was the caller, so it was like you had a player that was supposed to be the caller, and the rest of the play. We didn't even play it that way. We were all kind of our own callers,
Yeah, we
but
didn't do callers either. I mean, I can see why you would do it. If you literally
yeah,
had 25 people around the table,
yeah, yeah,
you gotta
yeah.
you gotta fix that situation. But when you're only like as kids, we were usually a small group of 3 or 4 people, maybe five. You don't need a caller as much in that situation. I mean, the group's
Hmm.
going to talk, but there's going to be communication. And sure, I can think back to different games where, quote, immersion was broken, or rules were being looked up,
Hmm.
especially when we were playing advanced D&D. Sometimes something would come up, and we would legit need to, we'd all want to know, you know. So, but again, we were rotating people. So the DM you have today, 3 games later, maybe it's going to be you DMing. So, if a rule issue came up because it was just something so, wait, is there a rule on that, or do we need to make one up, right? Out of the box. Uh, then we kind of needed to be kind of on the same page because we're in the same play group, But for the most part, just thinking back to it, and then like how you develop, probably the most straight role playing, despite the fact that we had to translate the little books. the little books, was probably then because we were younger.
Right.
So once we started role playing, you know, you were really role playing your elf. You might not know what an elf's supposed to be like according to D&D or later lore or Tolkien because we hadn't read Tolkien, but we had an idea from folklore and cartoons and stuff what we thought an elf would be like. So that's what we role played.
Hmm.
And so it was very much a lot of the I'm just doing this. And then later on, then you get, other material that says, oh, I'm supposed to ask a question this way, and the DM's supposed to say that. So then that gets incorporated into that. You get exposed to how other people DM, from school, 'cause, oh, you
Yeah.
play Dungeons and
Yeah.
Dragons. You play this game, this other game that you're playing too. Oh, well, we should get together and play. And that's when the swapping of ideas happen. So at any given time, I can think back and go, well, yeah, I did this thing that everybody complains that people do, but I also did this other thing that everybody says really good, and then there's the like in between thing people do.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's as clear cut as people think it is,
Yeah,
especially when
but
you're a kid.
yeah,
Imagination.
it's what I was saying before was it has to take the game master and the players together combined to say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. These are the rules for our game, stay in character, all that stuff. But it has to take it from both sides as well. So if you have a game master that's totally cool and okay about out of character talk, it's going to happen. So
Oh yeah,
every game master seems to be different out there, so
completely.
you get some that
And
will
some people,
allow.
that's what
Yeah.
they want. They want to sit down. They've had a rough week. They want to play the game. They want to do some role playing. They want to do some straight up roll the dice, see if you get snake eyes or not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the gambling instinct, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And they love it. I'm one of those people. I love rolling them dice. I mean, I get it. Um,
Yeah.
and maybe not as much as some, but I get what their Jones is for there. And they want they want to have some good food, and joke around with their friends and blow off steam.
Right.
They're
Right.
not there under an illusion that they are there to write a novel or a
No.
screenplay,
Yeah.
you know, or put on a radio show. So that's not their goal,
No.
and it's important to recognize that they have if that's the style of play that is what makes the game fun for them, whatever role-playing game they're playing, then they should be allowed to do that. To be
For
quite
sure.
honest, you know, I I find it weird, the edition wars, all that stuff, because if old school games sucked as much as the new people say, and if the new games sucked as much as the old people say, no one would be playing role-playing games at all because, first of all, they would have flopped in the 70s. Nobody would have proceeded
Yeah.
to make new games, and uh, new games wouldn't have developed if the old games were perfect, which we all know they weren't. So, if a game's working for a person or a group of people, let them play it. Open up your mind to the new possibilities of doing something a different way. I mean, I've
Yeah.
played Savage Worlds. I have played that one, so it's here somewhere, I think, unless it got destroyed. But I think that one it's in a crate, I think. I think it was in another room and when the house got crushed, it was one of the ones that survived and it's been put up. And it's in storage, so probably in the garage. And I just haven't been able to get
I,
to
I
it. So,
I
but
have kind of I have a love hate relationship with Savage Worlds. I mean I had a really good time with Savage Worlds game mastering it with my players at the time we were doing the Deadlands kind of thing.
mhm.
But man, I some of those roles were just like Wow. So
Yeah,
some of the dice would explode like way out of hand. It was just like
right. It could do
it was
that, and
it was so
it,
swingy, I think,
it was
it
very
was like
swinging.
yeah.
But it had some good ideas. Like it seems to be, it was the one that introduced the idea of MOOCs. And it had introduced some good ideas that then you could apply to any game. You're like,
Oh,
wait,
of
I can do this in
course.
any game,
Yeah,
and
yeah. The bennies, all that kind of stuff. That started, going into other games and stuff. There's all kinds of things from each game which you can pull from. Which there's no rule saying in your 5e game you can't have bennies. You can
absolutely not.
integrate that if that's what your group is going to be doing into, then that's what's going to happen. So
And that's
it's
why I tell people 5e is what you make it, man. I mean,
yeah.
if you think it's too easy to stay alive, then you have your group powwow and say, does everybody feel it's too easy to stay alive? This happened after our first session of 5e, by the way. If per the little pamphlet, and everyone's like, yeah, I should have died here and I should have died there, and included people who'd never played role playing games before. Like they comprehended that it should have been more lethal. And I said, oh, okay, so you're all okay with it being more lethal? Well, yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, you know,
Then it's on.
it's on,
Right?
man. You
It's
know,
on.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's easy to fix. You got a huge range of things you can do,
Yeah.
to make a game more lethal. So or and they felt that they were advancing too fast. That was another one that came up. So I'm like, well, we'll just add a zero to everybody that you have to reach, So instead of 200, you have to get too fast. Everyone's like, okay, that's good. you know, like I said, I did terrible things with 5e when I was playing it as a DM. Um, Now I'm trying to gear up for a sci-fi game, but it's
Right.
pretty close to old D&D. But nonetheless, that's what you do. You talk to your players, you find out where they're at, um, and then if you think a change needs to be made, you discuss it.
For sure. For sure.
And you'd be surprised what players will be for and against. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. I do that like after every session I have with Big Bad and Mr. Max and Spencer. After that session's done, you see me go ahead and do the ending thing, and then
Mhm.
I right after that we're still talking. We're like off camera. We're like, okay. Um, One of the things I would say, do you guys want to go ahead and take the narrative whenever there's a fail or a success, and then we discuss stuff like that, and we start thinking of different ways that we could get this game to really peak up, in certain ways where we think we could really flesh it out a little bit more. And
Yeah, just pick like one or
yeah,
two things to change, and then you just keep tweaking the game until you find that sweet spot.
yeah.
You know,
Because throughout that entire Castles and Crusades game that I've been doing with the guys is I've been trying to pull myself back out and be more of that narrator kind of mode, game master, and
disembodied voice.
yeah,
That'd be funny.
to be the the atmosphere or the NPC that is being presented for him. I've discovered that I've kind of pulled myself away from being the NPC a lot more, and I've had some pushback from some of my constant watchers saying, I really like the way that you did your traveler characters. I kind of miss your traveler NPC characters that you used to do. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm trying to. And I say, I want this to be my player's game. I don't want to be the GMPC all the time. So because
Yeah,
I mean I enjoy adding a little bit of interesting inflection in there as a kind of a different character. Like I take on a kind of uh alien kind of character, so you would talk like this all the time, stuff like that. It it's cool, but there's times where I just want my players to go ahead and say, "You guys are the stars of this show. Do just, you know, go ahead and do your thing. Do you role play to your heart's content. Uh, try to
Not,
develop your characters as much as possible." And
not every rep does funny voices.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I've played under many a DM who didn't, and still
yeah.
had a great time. And like I said, there's
Oh,
nothing
for
wrong with
sure.
having a good
Yeah,
time. But people, like I do not get the anti have fun thing. Um,
right.
like yeah, I mean, I understand that fun things don't always happen in a game, but doesn't mean you didn't have a good time playing the game. So, you know, just because your little paper person died or
So,
Bob's paper person died, um, doesn't mean you didn't actually have a good game.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
bad games are usually defined by really weird, sleazy, creepy, highly unethical things happening at the table
Hmm.
that pisses people off.
Right, right.
That would be a bad game. Okay, poor behavior on the part of the players or the DM or everybody. That's
Yeah.
what makes for a bad game.
Yeah, you kind of do have to have a discussion on what's the limits here. Like you know, are we going to have fade to black moments in the game? Is there romances going on? Is that something that your characters are interested in, or is this? Sometimes it even develops in the game where you have to kind of look back and say, you guys want romance characters in the game? Do you want that? Is that a thing? I mean, it could be put in there. It's if it's entirely up to you. I mean, it adds for the um for attachments for characters, to be used as something for me as a game master to, like, okay, there's going to be a way that like Lord Serviant wants to get back at the characters, for example. So he goes ahead and kidnaps the love of Calrissian's life, and that is a driving force for Calrissian's character to go ahead and do something about it. But
Right.
that's
Well, poor behavior would be well, besides, I mean, I have won the gold star for being at the table with a straight up weird, creepy, kinky stuff happening that nobody else ever had, except for the two people engaged in it at the table. Cue the porn music is really boring for a table. It's not awkward. So, but outside of that, poor behavior usually is things like, um, let's say a dungeon master has two groups in the same sandbox setting. So
okay.
he's not running two different games. He is with different people, but they're in the same setting, and he decides that he's going to use your character, who's in a different group, in the adventure that he's running with the other people, and your character ends up dead, and he calls
Hmm.
you, and, like it's not your game night. You weren't asked. That tends to create hurt feelings. Um,
Yes, yes.
if a player kills the other player during the long rest, the other players, and steals all their stuff, tends to create problems at the game table if
You know,
player versus player wasn't agreed upon at the beginning.
I've I mean, I've
In
done some
revenge of the
I've done
thing.
some dastardly things as a player too.
Yeah.
I've
But but that one is actually easier to overcome than
yeah.
having the dungeon master do something.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, because that usually destroys all trust at the table. Everybody walks. Whereas if the players do something kind of shady to each other, then at another game, usually the person who had the shade thing happen to them gets to do something back, and then it's all good. Yeah,
Right,
Um,
right.
so uh, poor behavior is usually very human poor behavior. Like
Yeah.
people just losing at the table, stuff like that. Which doesn't happen too often, but there's everyone's got stories of the one player, the one
Yeah,
DM.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
I've had occasions like that too, in all aspects of different games. So, in the future, what kind of game are you looking forwards to being a player in? If you had a choice in the future.
pretty open, and it does. Like when we did the Traveler game,
Mm-hmm.
I was straight up. I don't got the rules. Just direct me to something I can read, and we'll go from there. Right? That's what I did.
Traveler's so easy. It's such an
Didn't
easy
have. Yeah,
game.
I didn't have, but I didn't have. I don't have the current rules per se.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I read what you told me to read, and we were good to go. So with me, I'm pretty open at this point in my life. It's like, what are we playing? Are we nuns on motorcycles? What are we doing? Are we um
Death
are we big
Squad.
giant rabbits? Bopping field mice on the head. What are what's the genre? And I'll pretty much roll with it. Because I like variety.
Yeah.
As far as DMing a game, refereeing a game, mm, I'm waiting for my turn. So I'm working on something. I've got some stuff coming. I'm leaning towards a Metamorphosis Alpha game,
Oh,
really old school.
that's yeah. I,
um,
I I actually have one of my Metamorphosis Alpha books here, so
and I've
it's
got
it's
Gamma
some
World.
interesting
Yep,
stuff. Yeah.
I got one E Gamma World as
Gamma World.
well.
I know some of the editions of Gamma World were just like
I heard they were.
chart looking up charts and cross referencing weapon types and stuff like that. I was
Yeah,
like,
I heard it got
no.
complicated eventually, but I mean, it had the research, what I call the research chart,
Yeah.
because even though Gamma World is called, what was it, the first sci-fi game and role-playing game, and it was the first game to have role-playing game put on its
Yeah,
box.
yeah. That
Actually,
that was actually the
well,
first thing I picked up was a Gamma World. I thought it was a war game.
Metaphor Alpha was the first one actually,
Yeah,
and then Gamma World 3 expand. It really, Gamma World was Metamorphosis Alpha on the planet.
that's right. Yeah.
Um, really, with some refinement to the rules, which means that if you're playing Metamorphosis Alpha and you're having a rule question, your go-to sources to fix it is Dungeons and Dragons or
Pretty
Gamma World
much. Yep.
from
Yep.
that time period, and you can fix it relatively easily. Um, the uh, the game in the charts in Gamma World where you have to roll to see if you figure out what the device does and go to the next roll next. Oh, you got hurt. Oh, it blew up and killed you. Oh, it just doesn't work right. Oh, you figured it out. Okay. Those come from Star Empires,
Oh yeah.
which is
So,
a TSR's tactical space game. Was Star Probe and Star Empires are really the same game. Um, Star Probe came out first, and Star Empires was like the refinement expansion to it.
mm-hmm.
And if you read through it, you actually learn some things that then make uh, some of the stuff that you read on the net about Weiser's spaceship on my planet, for like Mysteria. They're also in the world of Greyhawk. They're on Oris too. They're the same spaceship. Uh, that was a sandbox planet that got split into two settings. So,
Okay.
um, and then became two separate worlds. But originally was one world, and they would do away missions on this world, and 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 so they to do an away mission on a D&D world means you have to have D&D stats.
Right. So
Okay.
yeah.
Um, so some of the things in D&D are actually alien things for real. Um, the reason the planet's stuck in the Middle Ages, there's a reason, and you can find it in Star Empires. The weapon's been deployed on it.
Hmm. So
um,
yeah.
yeah, there's a weapon that when deployed on a planet totally screws with the laws of physics,
Hmm.
turns science off after a certain level, and magic only works.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Almost like some sort of numeric device that has
Yeah, it's
employed
really
itself
interesting.
on the world.
So,
Yes.
yeah, very much like that. And there's actually quite a few interesting things in that original Star Empires game. Uh, so that was kind of like they had that, and then they also had Warriors of Mars, I think it's called. That was the one that got them sued by Edgar Rice Burroughs' um, um, descendants. Um, and that again, it said in there it had rules. It was mostly a tactical game, and it had rules for fighting and stuff. But if you wanted to do more of the adventuring, going through the dungeons underneath the cities, Barshumian cities, um, these complexes, dungeon complexes, um, they said straight up, use D&D.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Okay, so they got another sci-fi game, but saying use D&D. Yeah, Metamorphosis Alpha came out with like some rules for 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 that, and then Gamma World continued those, and then brought in those charts, these research charts that were over in Star Empires.
Yeah.
And the research
Yeah.
charts are, I like them.
Interesting.
I've been known to use them in other
Just
games.
Yep. Well, here's your chance. Just go ahead and mash them all together.
Yes,
Make make the metamorphose
yes,
empires.
yes, yes, yes. Star Frontiers is the other game. I really like that. That was the space game I talked people into playing when it came out in the 80s.
Yeah.
I could get
Yeah.
people on board on that one. Um, and so I've got a soft spot for it. In fact, I'm working on the project. I'll probably my goal to get the project done over the Thanksgiving holiday. Um,
So
for and then
for Metamorphosis Alpha, do you see that being something in the near foreseeable like future here with like yourself presenting a game?
I don't know. First of all, my players, I don't think about half of them I would get to consent to being filmed.
Hmm.
Um, they're shy. Some of them are teenagers. I mean, they'll do all kinds of unshy things, but as soon as you say you're filming it for,
You should think about doing online, like
yeah.
we're doing with everybody else here. Yeah.
And I might do that because I've already talked the we're going to do some practice mini things to make sure that we all understand Metamorphosis Alpha because it is different than the D&D
Yeah.
game campaign that they're currently in that I'm not running. I just kind of assist in. Um, and I'm a player in. I'm Kenny the cleric in that game, and so I'm going to try to teach them Metamorphosis Alpha. On the nights that we're not doing something else like D&D or playing or watching a football
Okay.
game. So it's football game season right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that happens a lot.
Hey, I know how you Americans are with your football games and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I
We have Mr. Crispy's in the background here,
Oh, but bring him in.
lingering for us. I'm gonna wait till he pops back in
Yeah.
on. I see his little. Oh, here he is. We'll go ahead and bring him in, Mr. Crispy.
Hi.
Hey, Crispy.
Hi, RPG Grandma. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah. So, sorry, I came in late, but I had every intention to be here on time. So, I don't
It's
know.
all
Does
good.
intention still count there, Rick? Or is that
It's
anyway?
it's all fine. Yeah. Like my the title of the of this stream is the journey from 2D to 3D player. And
so have you said how it's going? Like, wait, I'm sorry, I'm coming in so late. Did you tell us all of the wondrous experience of becoming a 3D game master and a 3D player?
Like I say, it's a tough thing, and you know well, it's hard to go ahead and pull your head out of that out of the control. The game master, I want to control everything. I want to present my story. You know, it's like let the players do the story, right? And
you know, even if you come up with a story and they agree the storyline and everything looks like it's going to go in that direction, they can do a 180-degree turn on you anyway. So
you never know. It might turn out to be that story that you came up with and go, oh, okay. But it went a little different.
One of the hardest things is to let go of the idea that I need to come up with a story in the first place. Like that's been so hard. Because I used to do that, like the whole storyboarding thing.
Yeah, you can.
And
they're gonna mess it up anyway.
You can't really. Now, I do think, Rick, what are your thoughts on this? Isn't it easier to become a? Is it easier? I should ask. Is it easier to become a 3D player or a 3D game master? What is harder and why? Do you think?
The player is easy. I feel.
I agree. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. The thing with game mastery, and I kind of gleaned on it. You just need some places. You know, if you're doing a fantasy thing, you just need a place that's their base, be it a hamlet or whatever. You as the game master, you have to know who's living there. As long as you have your NPCs all in line, you're okay there. You know what their goals are. They can suggest things to the players. You know, we have a job board over there, whatever, right? So, but the thing is, for every place that you put on your map in your head, the swamp, you need at least 3 things in there that could be encounters or an idea in there. For the ruins up in the mountain, you gotta have like 3 ideas or something, kind of just jostled about. And for that town down the road full of evil bastards, well, then you got to know what they're all about and what their intentions are. Once you got all that, you don't have to have some sort of they're going to be doing this, they're going to be doing no. Just let your players do what they're going to do, and you incorporate what's at hand available in that situation, in wherever they're going. And once you have them kind of snagged on that, then you're like, okay, now for our next session, you go ahead and refine things a little bit more, and you're able to go ahead and prep more advantageously, instead of thinning yourself out on all these ideas and dungeons and stuff that are never going to be explored. That's the thing is trying to keep it so that you don't burn yourself out on all the necessary stuff, and just focus on the important thing, which is what the players are up to and where they wanted to go. So
have you had some player attrition, RPG Grandma? Or you've just always played this way, like where you're speaking in character the whole time? Is that something that's just normal for you?
We were talking about that. I've played different ways. Probably when I was a little kid, it was probably a lot more of the I do this and I go here and I open the door and I use my sword. In the beginning, because it was 3 kids trying to figure out how to play D&D out of a little teeny tiny book.
It's kind of funny that we end up trying to get back to that place, right?
and
if we just stayed in that space, then we'd be fine. Yeah.
The more rules that came out, hey, the dog, stop it, the 2 of you. Then they came out with examples of how to play, so then you incorporate that. Oh, we're doing it wrong. Right, you did. And then you run into how other people are doing it. And then of course, you pick up habits of whatever that particular game table is and stuff like that. And then as an adult, you're looking back and like, oh, wow, I remember you doing it this other way, but now I'm doing it this way. And, people are making good points that, yeah. And like I said, in one game, you could do it all three styles, depending on what's going on in the game, along with everything else that could possibly happen. And some games, which I was going to hit on, was like I've got a game here that it's got a module, and if you play through that whole module, you will play through the complete gambit of what you can experience in a role-playing game. Everything from the first, third person, the dice rolling, different environments, different, all kinds of different scenarios. Seriously, survival scenarios, the resource, the whole thing, from the tunnels to being in a city to being on in the jungle, in the desert, and having to do mass combat with armies. Totally tactical, right? But having to role play being an officer in charge of something. So all of that is possible in that one module, which is pretty amazing. When you ask people who play that game what was the best module, that one, there's like two that come up, and that's always one of them, was his first module, because it covers so much stuff. Like if you ran that as a referee for that game, you would then know how to play probably 99% of that game by the end of that module, and how the rules and everything for those situations. But most games aren't that way today. But I've played plenty that had everything going in them, from the tactical to the we're storytelling big time right now. And it just depends. It has depended on the table, the era, what we thought in the moment was the right way to do something versus the wrong. But yeah, as kids, you just make believe. And so that's the thing to remember. If you're a kid and you were make believing, you're a fireman. Are you going to say my fireman goes up the stairs, or are you going to say I go up the stairs with my fire hose? Right? So yeah, it is kind of getting back to that. And we didn't have an adult telling us how to play. That was the other thing. So those initial first D&D games that I played as a kid were probably the closest, in the sense that when we did role play, we were role playing. The rest of the time we were trying to figure out the rules.
Right. Yeah.
Me.
The convoluted rules that we take little pieces from, because we didn't read the whole book.
That's right.
Yeah.
Somebody
has a nice short on that. Reading the book. Read the manual. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. That's true.
So for you, Crispy, so you're trying at your hand, game mastering, discovering so many things, trying to become the 3D game master.
Yeah, definitely the game mastering element's more challenging. Being a more immersive player, that's just returning to our childhood roots.
Yeah,
but the game master needs to be a little more than that. There has to be there's a little more juggling that goes on. I think Big Bad, he can attest to this, because excellent player. And then when he ran that game for us, he's like, well, this is way different than, and it's true.
Yeah,
it is different.
Yeah, it is.
It's just a completely different aspect to the hobby, even though I have to say, I do agree that the game master is just another player, but he's another player with a layered on top of that. He or she also has that I have to be an impartial judge. I have to juggle all these things, and then I have to be prepared to improvise, because good players will invite opportunities for improvisation. So there's a lot more to it, and I'm still struggling with it a little bit, but it is just so much fun to go from the what I would say is more of a superficial passive enjoyment of the hobby to something that's much more engaged and immersive and just feels a lot different. Feels different, doesn't it?
Yes.
Like, have you found that it feels different now?
Oh yeah.
It's like rediscovering the hobby for me. Like, I liked the hobby before as a 2D, maybe generous. Like, it was probably a 1D player, but as a 2D game master, I still really had a lot of fun with it. But now I'm discovering it for the first time, as if it's all brand new to me. And
It
and that's a lot of fun.
changes your whole perspective on
It does,
on
it
how the
does.
game runs and works and everything. And
Very
my
true.
personal opinion, and that I decided early on, because I was doing both, was that the best players were the people who learned to DM. And the reason that made them better players was often they were more forgiving of a DM, especially a new DM, because they're like, they know what the person's going through, right? They're like,
Oh yeah,
you're
I
right.
agree.
You know,
Mhm.
they know how impossible it is to know every rule, say, in a game like D&D. Like
Yeah,
if I pull
yeah,
1E rules, it's like a stack of books. You know, it's a huge stack of books.
yeah.
There's no
No,
way
absolutely,
you could maybe
absolutely.
memorize player. You could probably get pretty close to memorizing the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, because at one point I could tell you what page everything was in with the book. But outside of that, then you're going for you're going to the law library, right?
Mhm.
And it changes your perspective as a player. Like, oh, I know how much work the DM's put in. Okay. Um, he's mentioned something a couple times. That's a hook. That's where we're supposed to go.
Yeah,
Let's be kind to our new DM and go there, and not sit
yeah,
here and go, I'm going to railroad it. No, they're learning. They still got their wheels on their bicycle.
Training wheels, yeah.
Yeah, don't be trying to
Yeah.
make them crash already.
I mean,
Um,
it's good to have players that'll that toe that line. I mean, we did that for Big Bad pretty much. We were, we were given the hook, we took the hook,
Mhm.
and we may have grumbled about it along the way, but in the end, we went there and I died horribly, but it was a lot of fun. Enjoying what he had for us there, and he had a good time because he was able to do it finally himself to game master a game with a couple of players that were trying to conform to this the role play of the whole thing.
But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
different.
then you find out too that just how much of an agent of a chaos you are as a player.
Yeah, embrace the chaos.
That's
It's
right.
Yeah,
good.
you
Yeah.
find out. You find out. Because like players will always be like, you can sit there and go, okay, this is the mod. You can buy a module. Puppies, you can buy a module, right? And they can be in the middle of the dungeon. And dungeons are railroads, right? I mean, you're on level 3. You either got to go back the way you came or you got to go forward, right? This is like your choices. And they will still come up with things that
Mhm.
will totally be like, what?
We're gonna use those planks over there and the rope from this room, and now we're
Why
gonna
not?
Awesome.
construct a siege
Why not?
horse and
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
why not?
they'll come up with the crazy things. So once you accept that they're all that when you're a player, you're an agent of chaos. When you're dealing with players, they're agents of chaos. Then whatever you have planned, you start looking at it differently, because the likelihood that it's going to go sideways, pear shaped, is pretty high.
I,
Pretty
I I
pretty
I
pretty
love
high.
I love things going sideways now. I
Yeah, me too.
embrace it. I
The
embrace
Yeah,
it.
and
more,
it
the better.
usually comes out better than what you were planning anyway.
Almost,
Exactly.
almost inevitably. Almost
Yeah.
inevitably,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
better. In a sense,
And
it's better just on principle because it's means it's collaborative. If they just do what I tell them to do, or they just follow the
good job.
module
Yeah.
as a start to finish type thing, like you're running the race, then it
Yeah.
can't be collaborative. It has to, it's just a passive activity.
The hard thing is to not verbally help them.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh,
Yes.
that's
Yeah,
so
very true.
hard.
That's been really challenging to do because they'll get flummoxed over something that you're like, well, why are you stuck on this detail? And it's just this, it's just something that we all do. Well, you know, he paused just briefly in the description of that one thing. Like
That must
I
be
had a
important.
situation once where I described a hallway. They were in a dungeon. So this is a while ago, and the thief, he caught up for some reason. I had described a flagstone in passing, and he was like, "Oh, there's a trap there," and so he fixated on that. And though there was nothing there, he just he was just absolutely convinced there's something there, and so he rolled and he'd fail. And he just but he was just like the whole time, just there. I got to be there. It's got to be there. And it was, it's like, but there's nothing there. Like, so they do that. They do. And so it's hard not to say, look, buddy, there's nothing there. Like, anyway.
It's the red herring. Yeah.
Red herrings are a bit of a challenge because it can be really frustrating as a player. You spend like half an hour over this thing. And it's like, yeah, no, it's just a regular gazebo. It's not going to attack you. It's just
but
you take
advantage of those red herrings though, and you're thinking of other things that could be going on with whatever's going on. It gives you time to go ahead and coalesce these cool ideas that just spurious pop out. Yeah, this could happen right now, and then you make it happen. And
that's true.
So. You just use it.
You don't want to have the training wheels on because again, it's going to just make people be, well, just tell me a nice story, RPG Grandma. We're here for a nice story time, and then every so often nice, but it doesn't really matter because we know that you'll be nice to us if things go really bad. You know.
No, sometimes you have to light a candle underneath people's tiny.
Well, that's true. And, things start falling apart if you're not acting. Then if you're not acting in the sense of I'm doing something in the game, not I'm a thespian. Just I'm doing something in the game. If you're not doing something in the game, then the world is going to be doing something, and you're not going to like it. So
some kids steal their money, something.
Monsters have heard you traipsing around. Now they're back. That's something I've always struggled, even when I was a 2D player and a 2D game master. I have a hard time with dungeons that don't make sense. Like what's the ecology of this dungeon? It doesn't make sense to me. Why are there's all these monsters here? What are they eating? Why are they here still? Why haven't they moved on? Like, why is this? So I just absolutely, I can't stand, it was always bugged me. Like, what, this doesn't make any sense.
Some dungeons are really like, you have to, as a dungeon master, I've got some bare bone ones here because they're old, and they were published. And so I sat down and read like this very first dungeon that was outside of the pamphlet with the Temple of the Frog version module. And I sat down and I read this module, and on the first part of it, you're like, nothing makes sense. Okay. But until you start looking at like each level below it, and even though it's crazy and gonzo, it starts making more sense. Like there's things in level 1 that they're going to need maybe in level 2 or even level 3. So if they don't get these things in level 1, they're not going to be successful, or they're going to have problems. Let's just put it that way. And there's things going on in each of these levels, and you realize they've got this dungeon isn't really a dungeon, it's a town. this layered of baddies doing stuff. And they've all got their own things they're doing, but they are actually it's actually a weird kind of functioning society in there. And then the follow-up module to that one, it's even more explicit. They have a literal town in the dungeon. Like you go down there, there's an inn you can stay at. There's a library you can go do research in. You know, you can buy supplies now. Of course, everybody's evil and bad, so you're gonna have to figure out how to not get killed by the locals. But you know, there's literally a town in the middle of this dungeon. So, which then causes me pause when everybody talks about, well, what we did was we went so far and then we left, and we went back and we left, and we went, did this thing.
And the
That
dungeon's
first
just on
dungeon,
pause while you're gone. Like,
no,
so
you're gone, right?
we have like a
And
save point here halfway through.
yeah, and I go,
We
and
just
I've
fast
been
travel
thinking
back.
about that, and I'm going, is that how we played? Well, not unless we got killed. I mean, we really didn't do that when I played because nobody told us that's what we were supposed to do. So when I was a kid playing Dungeons and Dragons, and as an adult, as a result, you go in, you keep going normally, unless it was a dungeon that was clearly meant to have areas cleared and leave. But if it was like one of these multi-layered things, no, 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 no. We went in, we stayed in.
Yeah.
We stayed in, and these first two dungeons that are super old, that is exactly how they're laid out. If you leave and go sell your treasures, then you're not going to have that treasure to deal with the problem that's in the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sort of part of the puzzle, later on.
But is it a crazy, absolutely crazy, insane dungeon that doesn't make any sense in its layout? Yes. My suggestion is to change the layout of the dungeon when they're like that. When you're going back, when you're looking at an old dungeon.
I find that more and more, the more I go down this particular rabbit hole, the less inclined I am to accept that this dungeon just exists. Like, who built it? Why is it here? Like, is it like there has to be like, for someone that's spent any time in spelunking or in caves or anything, if it's man-made, the amount of labor that's required to make a functioning underground subterranean town is so astronomical that there must be and so I found quite quickly, as I went from what I was doing before to what I'm trying to do now, is I just found I'm having a hard time with dungeons in general. Like, we're gonna just move, unless the setting, I find, unless the setting has something explicitly like the Underdark. Okay, so there's an Underdark because there's an entire ecology down there that just can't even survive on the surface. So it makes sense that there'd be things down there. Or this is a city or a nation that was built on the ruins of some cataclysmic event, so that it makes sense that there's all of these rooms and caverns. But what too often I was doing in the past is I would just go to, like, what is that, dungeon.com or whatever it is, and just go to a dungeon generator and okay, I want it roughly this shape and how many corridors and how many secret doors and how many exits, and then you just hit generate and you're like, okay, here it is, guys, go and explore it. Like,
yeah, no, it's got to have a reason.
Why?
So like these first two crazy dungeons that I'm thinking of, modules is the very first module ever outside of Temple of Frogs. It wasn't even called a module. It has a purpose. As crazy as the layout is, as jammed into that little piece of paper, because that's part of the deal you're dealing with, is they're trying to jam it into this little piece of paper each level, right? On the graph paper. So from my perspective, it's okay to expand that out if you needed to, and like make the dimensions a little bit different. But it was built as a tomb. So the whole structure was built as this multi-leveled tomb. And more than likely, looking at it, the top layer was supposed to be the people who were guarding it and all that kind of stuff. And then you get into the second dungeon. They're dwarven mines. It's a dwarven city. That's why there's a town in the middle of it. It's what's left of the city. So it makes sense for that stuff to be there. Okay.
It builds on the ecology of the whole thing, and kind of helps it make it sound a little bit more believable.
Yeah, it's hard to suspend disbelief on some of these things.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Vault of the Drow was one of my favorites. It was going through the giants and then the Vault of the through the Underdark. and that was like it was all caves and everything. It was all natural, and there was like cities down there, Drow and all kinds of
Yeah,
different,
that's that
you
whole
know,
Hollow
yeah,
Earth thing that was in Pulp
yeah.
Fiction, you know?
It's cool. It's like you know, it is kind of like exploring above ground, but everything's underground instead.
Right.
So you have
Right.
you have that going for you. So
Yeah, and D&D is really post-apocalyptic setting. If you start looking at its history, even in that
yeah,
little module, because it gives you like the islands and there's like a whole little kit you can get, and then you start reading what's on each island, it becomes very clear that there was a more advanced civilization, like our advanced civilization. Okay, something happened, and all these cities and stuff have been built on the ruins, and every so often, like they accidentally find something underground
mhm.
situation, and then you've got all this weird technology that only makes sense if it's basically Gamma World, but so far into the future that that stuff that you find in Gamma World is gone.
Yeah.
So nobody remembers that there was this ancient civilization that
Yeah, that
had
was
done.
that was something that was poised through Blackmore. The original Blackmore was that underlying lost civilization kind of thing, Temple of the Frog, and then the idea of the craft landing, which was the escape from the barrier peaks kind of stuff, and
Yep.
yeah, the lost city and stuff like that. There was all kinds of different things like that that
There's a
prompted
couple spaceships in Greyhawk too, if
yeah,
you read the setting book carefully.
yeah, yeah.
So what's next for you, Rick? As your journey from a 2D to a 3D, what's next? I think Big Ben
The
said something about 4D.
I'm gonna become 4D.
When he said that, I was like, well, 4D, is that just
4D.
3D over time? Is that
I
what
think
that is? It's
I
just
think 4D is
consistency?
4D is when you start teaching other people how to
When
do
you start
this.
teaching
So.
other people, yeah. When you have your own following and they're
Yeah,
all
I'm not quite there yet, but I have a little following. But yeah, I'm just perfecting what I'm doing now, and trying to be more consistent in
How do you
how I
decide what
present.
to work on? How do it's something it's a
Oh
question I've
man,
had for a while.
it's
How do you decide? If you just say you want to improve the game, you've identified where improvements required, but how do you decide what to focus on? There's so many things.
Yeah, I know. Well, the first thing was what I was trying to do was pull myself
Okay.
out of the situation for most
Why did you
things.
decide on that? Like, why was that the first thing? There were so many other things you potentially you could have done. Why that one first?
Pulling back takes me it eliminates a lot of the other things that occur that I wanted to
So it's like a root
correct.
problem,
So
and if you can
the
handle
root
that,
problem
then
was pulling me out of the situation more. So
Okay.
now I'm just narrator, and I narrate the environment, and I don't and then I just present NPCs when it's time. So that's my time to shine with my voiced NPCs or whatever. It's my little thing.
how do you decide on what, like, as a game master, that makes sense to me, but what about as a player? What do you decide to work on, like this transition from 2D to a 3D player? What do you work like? How did you decide what to work on? What are you working on right now?
For as a player,
Yeah.
I think I got player down
You've mastered
closer.
it?
I think I am there as a player. You're there
Okay.
as a player. You're definitely
Oh,
there
no
as a
way.
player.
No way. No.
Oh, you're great as a player.
Mm-mm.
Come on.
No, the problem I have now is that I got to be careful not to typecast, and because I have a tendency to play a certain way. I think everyone does, but
Yeah.
the advantage of role playing is that you do not have to be
Right.
typecast. You can be something else. So I've got some plans to play completely different. Not in terms of not role playing, still role playing, but just the different demeanor, different maybe a different voice. I can change my voice a little bit. So just doing something that I'm not typecast.
Do do you find that you're not doing that as a game master? Like
as a game master, I'm pretty good when I'm dealing with NPCs. I can change them up pretty quick and be different. Like I'll show it to you. I created this list. I don't know if you can see that. Come on, iPhone. So it's just a list of personality traits,
right?
And then quirks and distinguishing features. And I can just quickly roll on that and then lean into those. But when I'm playing one character, I got to be careful. I don't want to play like I played in, well, the first one I did online, which was that Dark and Terrible. I played Espen a certain way. And then the next one I'm playing in Big Bad's game, and I'm playing that character. And am I playing him the same way? This is the problem I'm having. Am I playing this character, even though they're different characters? If you is it only different if you really squint? Like if you look at it and you say, well, he's actually just playing the same character again and again and again and again. And I'm trying to be different. I'm trying to have the cleric in your game be different than what the fighter was in Big Bad's game. That's what I'm struggling on.
Well, I've got two characters I'm playing. So I've got the one that I play in the live game here with my play group, and that's Kenny. Kenny is a cleric. So Kenny, says and does the annoying things clerics do, but Kenny's also got a gambling problem, and he really wishes he was famous, and there's a reason he's an adventurer. They told him to go, find some relics and get away from the, where he's corrupting the.
Right. Yeah. What I'm talking about is it's maybe even a little more elemental than that. Like it's more how the personality that I'm expressing through role play. Like so is this guy, is he going to be cracking wise like all my other characters have done? Does he have the same sense of humor as all my other characters have? Like I'm trying to have it be just on a very first thing. Oh, he's in here. Like what I don't want to have happen is someone that's trying to be a better role player, I don't want to have it so that when someone who dials into a stream, watches an actual play, as soon as they see this mug, they're like, oh, I know exactly how he's going to play. Like that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried, okay, he's going to just be, oh, we know he can role play, but he role plays in the exact same way every time. And so he has a certain,
it's like Clint Eastwood. Like Clint Eastwood like in every movie,
and it's, I guess there's some merit to that, but there's also the side of things where you can have a serious role where you can be really serious and you don't like just deadpan. I want to be able to do that. And then also play in the goofy, well, I don't really like goofy games, but you know what I mean? Like where it could be a little more lighthearted, than just being really gritty and dark and brooding all the time. So that's what I'm working on right now. Trying to be different just at a glance. Like, okay, yeah, he's playing something different now. Personality, totally different personality. Character. That's what I'm looking for.
Right. Because so I got Kitty the human, who's a cleric, and he's based on Father Ted. So if you've ever seen Father Ted, that's my idea, Kenny cleric, but D&D style. And then you have, I have Moo, the Minotaur artificer. Within 5e. So now Moo is female and she has a different personality. They're both on a mission from Divine Missions, but outside of that, Moo has different flaws, different because she's a female cow, she tends to be worried about the calves, but only to a certain point because most of the calves are human. But culturally, power, strength, those are her goals, which is different than Kenny's. So by figuring out goals and some cultural differences and being like, well, I want to play them a bit different. So I'm trying to do that as well. So like if both games were filmed, they're not, but if they were, you would see a difference between the Kitty character and the Moo character,
Hmm.
you know, the Moo, and how they're presenting. And because she is alien compared to the other, the other people are like human, half elf and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I've been having her drop stuff every now and then, make statements every now and then that make everybody else go, like, you know, I know that smell. Yeah, that's human pie. Human pie is good. But why are humans eating human pie?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because minotaurs, um, you know, I could eat you,
Yeah.
um, but trying to make her be different and not just a human per se in
Hmm.
cow persona, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah. I think
I think that's
yeah,
huge.
I think Crispy, one thing you should try
Hmm.
is something that we used to do back in the old day. Ted, that wonderful game master I first had that got me into, actually trying more role play.
Hmm.
He had a game where it was more like a sci-fi. So what we ended up doing was all of his character, all his NPCs were kind of based off of movies and stuff like that, like Runaway. So we were fighting Luther, who was being played by
Right.
Gene Simmons and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So this game prompted us as players to pick a movie actor in a specific kind of a role, and you play as if you were that movie actor in that role.
Yeah.
So we had one guy that was playing like a Sly Stallone, and he was a cop, and kind of idea, and it was a future, but he's like a future cop. I was playing a guy, his name was Valk, and he was Val Kilmer as a hunter killer robot.
Oh,
So
okay.
so we would pick different kinds of characters with roles, and we found that would develop us more in different kinds of thinking
Right.
in their roles. You might want to try something like that.
That's a good suggestion. I like that. Yeah. I like that. And then I want to choose things that are very, very different. Like, so one that's it's not, now I'm Charles Bronson, not, what's his Clint Eastwood. No, I mean, they're close enough that it's going to be the same. No, you want something completely different. So that's that's a good suggestion. I was planning on that for an upcoming game that hopefully will materialize. That'll just be someone completely different.
Good, bad, and the ugly. That is a good one to kind of watch each of the characters and see how they perform. See how Angel Eyes works, Tuco, and the man with no name, or Blondie, and see how they would all work together in somewhat of a goal, but they all had their own motivations, and that was the cool thing is they're all trying to do something. They're all in this situation. It will, and it made such a good story too. Just the different characters.
Totally.
Yeah. So studying something like that really, really helps. Another one, Samurai 7, or the Magnificent 7, stuff like that. You see how different characters, even though they're all technically heroes, but they all have their own little motivations and idiosyncrasies that you can pick up on. And studying that kind of stuff can help you develop your NPCs a bit more too, giving you, so you have you got taste of little stereotypes that you can pick from, but you can twist them up a little too. That does help.
Old TV shows, Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's got both the remake and the original have a variety of personality types.
Oh, for sure.
I find
to pull from.
I just spend so much more time in books than I do with movies, and so it's harder. Like people say, oh yeah, this. And I'm like, yeah, I think I've seen an episode of that, but it's
Well,
not, I haven't studied it as much as I have. Like I read a lot more than I watch.
yeah, and
And
books are often written from a one character's
they can
perspective
be.
more.
Yep. They can
Yeah,
be.
a lot of them are,
Yep.
especially the adventure ones.
Yep.
But still, you get a variety of personality types usually.
Oh yeah, always.
Um,
Hmm.
so you
If
can
they're
look at
good,
characters. Yeah, you
you
can look
have
at
that.
yeah,
Yep.
you can look at the characters in your favorite books
Hmm.
and
Yeah, that's
see.
what I tend to do. It's just a matter. It's a performative thing, is what I'm discussing. So I can intellectually I can understand. Okay, yeah, this is I'm gonna model it after this, or I'm gonna model it after that character that I enjoyed so much. Uh, but the performative is where it either comes out or it doesn't come out. And so in my mind, I could think, oh yeah, this one's different. That now I'm not. I'm this version of Val Kilmer. Maybe I'm not the Doc Holliday version. I'm more of the movie Heat. Like I'm that Val Kilmer. So
Yes.
I'm gonna, but there's a performative aspect to it, and it maybe is something that I haven't considered as much in the past as I need to. There's a role playing a character. It's more there's a performance that has to come through in order for that character to materialize in the world as something different. And I'm not talking about just accents. I'm terrible at accents. I'm talking about demeanor that's as it's played. Like I'm talking about the performance of the demeanor. And so that's maybe that's my attempt to describe the transition to 3D and then maybe 4D, so that I'm like, okay, so now I can do it completely. I can play the if I could play someone that is more like, well, here's a good example using film. I want to be able to play Christian Bale, role play Christian Bale as American Psycho, but I also want to be able to play Christian Bale as the machinist. I want to be able to play Christian Bale as Batman. I want to, or maybe I want to play him as the Prestige. Like these are those. This is the same. Like this is someone who has been able to avoid the typecasting because he can play such a wide variety of characters. And as someone who wants to be a really good role player, I want to be able to role play that kind of range. Can I be that kind of crazy off the wall American Psycho character? Could I also be that introverted, somewhat insane machinist character? Could I be the hero like Batman? Could I be the showman like in the Prestige? Like which one can I do all of them? Can I easily switch between them?
Yeah.
Can I even
Not
play
an-
a girl? Like that,
Yeah.
there's a hard one.
actor, I
Can guys actually role play girls effectively? Because every time I try to role play as a woman, I end up being either this odd kind of valley girl thing, or
for sure.
I'll play like with the handbag and everything. Like I'll do the flipping the hair and I'll be and so like I want to be able to play a woman so that it's believable. Like it's not just an awkward
Will scholarship
attempt.
you this guy.
So because I don't even know if that's possible, RPG Grandma. Because
maybe watch some Mean Girls or something like that.
well, I've been married 27 years. Like you'd think I'd have it down now, but no, I don't quite have it down quite yet.
Despite what we're being currently taught, men and women's brains are wired differently.
They're just not. No, absolutely.
We're hardwired differently.
Yeah.
And it's a fact, and you can prove it with brain scans and stuff. But
yeah, I
it's
can play
not
a girl. I can
impossible.
play a woman and have it be funny. Like I can do that. I can be funny as a woman character, but I'm not sure I can be a serious woman character. Like that, I don't know. I don't think I can. Not yet.
I just think what you'd have to do in that, you would have to do some homework, and you would have to actually to start watching female actresses play different kinds of female roles on TV. Like pick a show, like
Oh, I
Which
can't watch
one?
current
Got
TV. It's just it's abysmal.
BBC Death on Paradise has a bunch of female characters in the town and
Mm.
stuff. But you would probably need to do that and like pick one of those characters to practice being. Um, and uh, and that's why I said like okay, so like in the Traveler game for my one-off Traveler game that I played with Rick here, I made a list of a few things that I wanted to do in that game, like the personality type. I figured she was angry. I think I projected that well through the whole session. That she was used to being independent, and that tends to make that person be very bossy. Okay, um, because she'd been doing all this other stuff, and now she's got to come work for the Navy and follow rules by stupid people. She's gonna be angry. Okay, but I also I projected that, but that wasn't a real stretch for me. It's my job and stuff. But uh the but I worked in a little. I had a goal. I knew I was playing a space game. I knew at some point something would be vaporized or blown up, and so I made a choice that I wanted to say MC squared. They got MC squared. Somebody's getting MC squared. MC squared. I wanted to specifically say MC squared in that episode. And so I found the opportunity. Something got blown up. The planet. um, but but it's when you do those little things, you don't have to have a huge list of things to do each session. It's my personality is going to have like you pick three things to start the character out. And then each session you can add another thing. You can drop another thing, you know. So like in the second game I'm playing, which is the one that's broadcasted, every so often you'll hear me say, we're on a mission from God, which is, Blues Brother reference.
Mm-hmm.
Because somehow we've ended up on a mission from a God, and so I'm just saying God. And and so our little group, that's what we're doing. But I do other things that remind people I'm a Minotaur, and Minotaurs sometimes do evil, messed up things. You know, um, normally, I mean, I'm a nice Minotaur, but I'm capable of those same things.
You
So,
should just gore to death one of the characters, just
well, I gored to death several bad people.
Oh, no. Like you just turn on like Jace or somebody.
Bad and the light going, oh my God.
Jace.
He's one of the players.
Yeah, had enough.
Right. I'm already corrupted. My eyes already glow red with flame and stuff.
Yeah,
so guys.
you just turn to him and be like,
that?
You have insulted the herd.
Yeah,
just
everything.
trample him. Just trample him to death.
Another thing for you to think about, Chris.
Too bad, Big Bad. It's coming.
Yeah,
just so you know.
Yeah. One thing you should think about with your different ideas for characters is remove that idea that evil, and replace that with just the way they do things. Because a lot of people get hung up on the idea evil. The character, because you see some of the characters that Val Kilmer played, they could be construed as evil, but they had their motives and their underlying reasons for being the way they were, and you have to keep your brain into that kind of.
Well, I completely agree. I completely agree, Rick. When I create a villain, and I love creating villains. The villains, in order for villains to be believable, they have to have, like, you can have an amoral villain and it's terrifying, but even more terrifying is the villains that have that are convinced that their morals are correct. Yeah. And so that they consider themselves virtuous. So they're not only villainous, but there's no reason why they would ever let up on their quest, because they consider themselves to be morally obligated to continue whatever heinous thing that they're doing. And they don't even see it as heinous then. It's a righteous thing that they're doing. And so I agree. Although I do think sometimes it's fun to have a villain that's just this hyper competent psychopath. That's just like to them, it's like they don't even, the concept doesn't even occur to them. They just do what they want in the moment at any point. And that can be a little.
There are people like that.
There are. I mean, and so there's, it's also sometimes what you can do is you say, well, you think of, because it's easier to find heroes. You just find that hero, and then you say, what one thing would turn this hero into a villain? And then maybe there's just one thing. Ooh, what's the line? That's an interesting idea. What's the line between this heroic, like we'll take Luke Skywalker. What would it take? What one thing would change to make Luke Skywalker the most evil Sith Lord in the universe? There's got to be one thing. Because usually it is that fine. Usually it's just that one. Oh, if he just made that choice, then he is the ultimate bad guy. Like what would it be? Yeah, Disney, exactly. Yeah. So I would just take anything made from Disney and like, there's your villain right there. So my villains are all based on Elsa. You may have heard of her. Elsa is the most psychotic villain ever created. It's just amazing. You watch Frozen again. Don't actually watch Frozen again. But if you did have a chance to watch it, you could watch Frozen and just understand. This is the villain. Okay, the Barbie movie. Barbie is the villain.
Oh no,
she is the
villain.
She is the she is the villain. Ken is the victim. And so if you take but definitely all of my villains are basically modern Disney movie. Yeah, that's right. I see that now. Dark of Maya. Yeah, what one thing would you change to make Luke the bad guy? You change the color of his kyber crystal in his lightsaber. And then because we all know there it is.
I've done it.
I played a lot of Westerns. So in Westerns, to make the character evil, you give him a black hat. If he has a black cowboy hat, that's it. You're done. It's just, okay. You don't even have to, you probably don't even need things like detect evil in Westerns, because he has a black horse and a black hat. He's the bad guy. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Quick night quiz. Which is the bad guy in the, which is the heel in the jousting colors? The Black Knight or the Red Knight?
I have no idea.
The Red Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the Black Knight. Is that crazy? We always see the guy in the black.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Yeah, that's all new to me. But yeah, so that's right. Elsa is the ultimate bad guy. I mean, every big bad should be patterned after Elsa.
You can take that same logic and swing it around the other way for your when you play a player character. Mm-hmm. Think of what would turn this bad guy into a good guy.
That's an interesting idea.
And then play it from that end, kind of like what Bernier is doing in a sense. Mm-hmm. He's kind of a bad guy, but not really.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you got to think of it in these contexts and
I like doing that. I mean, it is kind of playing with the expectation. Like, I can kind of understand what your character is based on how you've modeled it after this particular character in a popular fiction of some kind, whether it's print or media, whatever it is, but then just switching it slightly so that I like that. I like that idea that you can take the villain here. What would it take to make the villain in this story the good guy? So how is Captain Hook going to be the good guy? Like what would he probably is the good guy, honestly. Peter Pan is the psychopath. So it's the I'd be interested in those kind of things. Like yeah. So anyway, that's That's a bit of a tangent, but
There we go.
that's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on in that 3D
Back
space.
of my head,
It's
Yeah.
4D now. 4D
Yeah, trying
now.
to be
fantasy game.
Yeah.
I've got an old what is it, Mayfair,
Mhm.
you know, RPG, you know, third party setting, and it's on trolls, goblins, a few other things. And I read through that and I said, yeah, what would be cool? It'd be cool to have all the players play one of these monsters. They're all from one of the monster tribes,
Mhm.
and just do a whole campaign, and it's the monster tribe versus going off and doing all the adventuring and going off and dealing with those pesky villagers and going off and
Mhm.
you know dealing with all that. I just thought, because after a while you get tired of dwarfs and elves and things.
I
Yeah.
think what is it called? Starfinder did that as well with a group of like gremlin kind of guys.
They did.
They,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could play
kind
it.
of the
It was an
And
adventure.
I know
I think it was an
Pathfinder
adventure
has
path.
the kobolds or
They
something
had
like
these
that. But
funny, like 6-limbed little gremlin guys that, for some reason, they thought that was going to be a big seller, and so they did the whole thing on it. I did remember when you were talking RPG Grandma, it made me think of that ill-fated product called Savage Species, which it was a D&D product where you could then play characters. You take monsters from the bestiary and you turn them into player characters. I tried that once, and it was a dismal failure because why would these monsters cooperate with one another? They're mortal enemies with each other, not just with the good guys.
no,
And then
they have to all be
they have
one
to
from
all
one.
be the same one. But then the problem was, as soon as they were like, okay, so we're going to go over here, and like, well, yeah, except that you're killed on sight. Like, as soon as you go into this city, you can't be walking around like you're all Ettins or whatever it is, or ogre mages or whatever. Like, yeah, the common folk are going to scream, run away, slam their doors. They're going to call up the militia. And so it was pretty quick. It was like, we're kind of limited in what we can do because there's so many places we go and we're just killed on sight.
You have to change the ecology of the Underdark.
Yeah, and at that point, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you have to change your thinking. So, like, if we look at alignment in its original form, which was how to figure out how to form armies and what army would fight each other in
Right.
chainmail, and who were the wild cards, go either way. What you going to give the dragon? What you going to give Big Daddy to be on your side? you know. So if you look at it like that, then the monsters would have alliances with each other. Like one orc tribe might be aligned with Goblin tribe X, but Orc tribe B might be the enemy of both Orc tribe A and Goblin tribe X, just like real people. So if you start looking at like that, like dungeons need to have a reason.
Yeah.
And reevaluate how the monsters interact with each other. They have to have trade. They have resources to manage, just like people in the towns. They need food. They need water. They need technology. So 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 if you start looking at it like that, then what you have to realize is that the monster space has to be in Monsterland.
Yeah. My issue with playing
And then
monsters.
they're going into the human dwarven world. They're the ones raiding into there for specific things and bringing them back to the monster tribe or going on specific quests. So they're going to need to evade a lot.
Yeah, you can play certain. I agree. You could certainly play certain scenarios as that. Like, so you're a war party, a mixed savage world. The problem I have with it now, as I consider even the possibility of allowing that in my games, is that it's hard enough to find people that are capable of role playing a human. Now you're asking people to role play something that is completely different than a human, has different motivations. It's not a human in just costume. It has to be something completely different. You're not just, it's not Halloween. Like you're playing, so like that's what the problem I have sometimes with games that have a huge variety of races to play. Okay, if everyone could play humans, role play humans well, then great. Then we can branch out. And that's like me trying to role play the opposite sex. Yeah, okay, it's a bit of a stretch, granted. But now you're not only the opposite sex, you're an elf. An elf is not a human with pointy ears. They have to have something, or even worse, you don't have a normal biology. Like you're not just an anthropomorphic animal. You're a totally different thing completely. And so that's my problem with playing monsters, is that, yeah, if you could convince me that as a player, not you in particular, RPG Grandma, of course, but just as players in general, if everyone in my group I knew could role play a human being, then I might even consider them saying, okay, yeah, so now try a dwarf. I mean, it's close, but it's not the same. It can't be the same. If it's the same, it's just a short statured human. Why even? And most people just play a dwarf just as a short human. They play an elf just as a kind of a wafy, pointed ear human that has a long lifespan. But in my mind, it should be completely different than human, and not just human adjacent. And that's even harder if you're like, okay, my character now is they have a completely different lifestyle cycle as a human. They don't have the same family structure. They don't have the same cultures. They don't have the same language. They don't have the same diet. They don't have the same sleep schedule. There's going to be so many differences that compound. Even just one of those differences should make it so that role playing that is demonstrably different than just role playing a human that looks a little different. So that's my struggle with it. You understand what I'm saying? That it's just,
no.
People tend to just role play them as humans that are in costume, and it should influence your motivation. If you're trying to play a goblin, like Pathfinder's gone this way, goblins now are a race that you just have in the core rule book as a player race. Well, but what is the lifespan of a goblin? Like, how long does a goblin live? Do they live this standard? Like, because this is going to change a lot of how they behave. How quickly do they mature?
Have less time to complete their task.
Because they just don't. In most cases, they say I'm a goblin, but then they play it just like you're a human. There's no differentiation really, other than I'm green and I'm short and I like explosives. Okay, yeah. But that's what I'm looking at. So again, this is pushing it to maybe an unreasonable extreme, is that I'm expecting a player to play something that's completely different than a human, not just a human that is in costume.
They do have to.
That's my soapbox, by the way. I just
it is something people won't, if they're going to role play. That's the first part of that. Yes,
and they won't.
They have to have put some thought into it. A little bit of thought into it. Like, okay, the first time I played a gnome, and I played a gnome character once, another favorite character.
Oh,
yeah, gnome. Yeah, it was an unusual gnome. This is not 5e gnomes. This is that. Yeah. And I've never played a character who's one of the things that motivated this character was to play jokes on people. Gnomes like that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I never played a character like that ever. Let me tell you, they're fun as hell. You spend all your free time thinking how you're going to screw with your party in a way that's humorous. How you're going to screw with the bad guys in a way that's humorous. That's even better. And how your magic's probably going to backfire and make even more humor, because I had like no wisdom. So, yeah.
This is making some really good topic for yet another live stream. I think we could really dive into this and come, if we go ahead and study off, like take what we're talking about now and come up with some ideas on how to make different kinds of characters different, like the elves, the dwarves, so getting their motivations down as far as a culture and stuff like that.
Well,
I want to see.
look
I want
at
to see
how
people trying
do
it.
aliens on Star Trek.
Yeah.
They take a human characteristic and they make it extreme.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that helps to start to define that species is different than your average human.
Mhm.
And so, like for gnomes, the need to play practical jokes on people, that's an extreme thing. They're Bugs Bunnying everything all the time. Okay, so
And that's why we hate them.
Yeah.
Betty, that's all, folks.
Yeah, there's no bag limit on gnomes. Take as many as you want.
Yeah. Which is very different, so say than a Vulcan, which no emotion, so but there are people like that. I've met people to compartmentalize their emotions terribly. I've been one of those people. So I can say that that's a real thing. And when you get to that extreme, those and they're also snobs. So you got two characteristics to go with right there for that helps define that for every single person who then plays a Vulcan on that TV show.
Right.
So you have to come up with these stereotypes for the different races. And you're right, they put no thought into that. What would be the stereotypical dwarven thing? And it's not a Scottish accent.
Every dwarf is Gimli.
Yeah. yeah.
I got my so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that I study up on the dwarves here.
There you go.
In Harn, and they'll be in there soon as well. So
that's good.
Just got this one.
Oh, nice.
In a dwarven kingdom, people living in a dwarven kingdom who aren't dwarves, just like so when you have a culture that's a dominant culture, the people living within that culture, there's a certain amount of cultural they take traits from that other culture and they incorporate that. And if the dominant ruling culture is elven or dwarven or something else, then court manners for that culture is what you're going to see the nobles of the other races exhibit. All right.
Yep.
And nobody does that in D&D. Nobody does that, and which is bizarre. But when you think about how people are, this is exactly what happens. Dominant culture has certain expectations about how you're going to behave when you come to court. You better do it. Okay. The other thing is, like for dwarves, dwarven girls have beards, which for some reason they never have them on the minis. But anyway, so they have beards, right? I decided a long time ago, if you got a bunch of beardless women who are trying to be upper class within a dwarven run kingdom, they're all going to be wearing fake beards. It's going to be a fashion statement. It's going to be the reverse of what you're reading in the books. The dwarven women aren't going to be shaving. The dwarven men are going to be looking at somebody who doesn't have a beard is ugly.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you're gonna have the same thing in just human culture too. You have the upper class and the lower class. The upper class dresses differently, reacts differently, has their own cultural, gives and takes. And then the underclass, the regular blue collar people, they'll have their own, minutia going on with their character, with their groups and stuff. So you have all kinds of different things that you can play with.
The human peasants might look like normal humans, but when you go and see the human courtesans, let's say, for the noble humans, but within a dwarven kingdom, they're going to be acting and dressing more like the dwarves.
That's right. Right. Yeah. It's a good thing. Good things
No heels.
to think about.
In other words.
No heels.
No heels.
Clogs. We only wear clogs.
Yeah, that's right. Flats. Flats is the rule. No heels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, we've reached like the 3 hour and
Sorry,
so
Rick.
mark, and I'm like, ah.
Yeah, you're tired. I'm tired.
This has been a good talk. And any last things you want to say before we close this up? RPG Grandma.
Just hey, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
It's awesome to have you.
Nice.
Crispy.
Only thing I would say, just really quick, the main takeaway for me is someone that's like you, Rick, on this journey to go from 2D to 3D. Once you taste that forbidden fruit, there's just no going back. You can't. It's a one-way street. Once you get there, it just doesn't feel right to go back the other direction. And yeah. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, cool. I do tend to agree. I do want to stay with staying role play centric in my games. That's how I like to go. And having more players now. We have a whole slew of new players that are trying it out. It's getting out there slowly in the interwebs. It might have an impact this time. Maybe we can get people to role play a little bit more. Just a little bit more. It'd be awesome.
You can do it, guys. Make believe.
Yeah.
And have fun too as well.
Yeah, absolutely they will. Yeah.
So anyways, closing out tonight. Thank you guys for popping in and enjoying the stream. Thank you everybody who's been commenting and interacting once again.
Hey, since you made it this far in the video at the end, you may as well hit that subscribe button. Because it's free. Honest, it's free. Just go ahead and hit it. I'm learning stuff. You're learning stuff. We all learn together. Subscribe. Just do it.